The great emperor, in his magnificent pursuit of immortality, had entered secluded cultivation for a staggering 10,000 years. Yet, upon reawakening, he was met with a shocking revelation: he had but 3 days left to live. The sole method to extend his dwindling lifespan was to rely on his clan members marrying and producing offspring. He had initially believed that after countless years of inheritance, his imperial clan's numbers would have long since exploded. Surely with a few great-grandchildren, his vitality would be instantly replenished. But the very next moment, gazing upon the 108 remaining bachelors of his lineage, he was plunged into a deep, unsettling contemplation. The Grand Elder, after 3 millennia of cultivating a specialized child technique, had achieved the legendary Pure Yang sword physique. The Divine Son, on the other hand, was renowned as a man of unyielding resolve, having outright rejected the advances of every saintess across the 9 heavens and 10 lands. Even the current clan head, out of devotion to the family, had severed all romantic ties 5 millennia ago. Gazing upon the imposing, righteous faces of his clan members, both young and old, who seemed to wear their single status as a badge of honor, the great emperor felt a maddening buzz in his head. Could this truly be the family's gravest crisis? Clan head Li Xianxia, with a solemn expression, puffed out his chest. "Old ancestor," he declared. "The old ancestor of the neighboring royal family has emerged from seclusion and is brazenly demanding to annex our Li clan's ore mine. We implore you, old ancestor, lead us to slay them, slay your head." The great emperor finally lost all semblance of composure. In a fit of fury, and colossal golden palm, vast enough to obscure the heavens, descended from above. The very next second, accompanied by a thunderous explosion, Li Jiantian, a formidable quasi-emperor, was instantly slammed deep into the earth. The entire assembly fell into an absolute, stunned silence. Every elder and disciple present was utterly dumbfounded. Listen well. Hovering majestically in midair, the great emperor unleashed a roar that instantly saturated the 9 heavens and 10 lands with his boundless imperial might. All the disciples trembled uncontrollably, instantly prostrating themselves on the ground, loudly proclaiming their obedience to the old ancestor's decree. From this day forward, the clan shall enter a state of level 1 battle readiness. All cultivation tasks are to be temporarily suspended. Immediately compile a list of all female cultivators possessing exceptional talent. A cautious elder tentatively approached. "Old ancestor, are you planning to use them for harvesting and nourishment?" "Harvesting and nourishment, my foot. This is about arranged marriages." Pointing a furious finger at the assembly of bachelors below, he roared, "Within 3 days, I demand to see a divine son married. Fail me, and this emperor shall break every one of your legs and hang you at the mountain gate to dry." At these words, the entire Li clan erupted into a tumultuous clamor. No one had anticipated that the old ancestor's first decree after emerging from seclusion would be a forced marriage. Just then, a frantic guard flew in to deliver a shocking report. "Divine son Liaochen at the Grand Assembly of Yaoqi has made the Yaoqi saintess weep. He even intends to draw his sword and strike her down." Hearing this, the great emperor nearly exploded with rage. The Yaoqin saintess was a peerless beauty and a premier figure in the cultivation world, a veritable source of vital essence. How dare that scoundrel raise a sword against her? Rebellious son, all of them rebellious sons. This old emperor must personally go and rectify this clan's affairs. With that declaration, he took a single step, directly shattering the very fabric of space. Meanwhile, at the sacred land of Yaoqi, the centennial grand immortal peach assembly of the Eastern Emperor was underway. Immortal qi swirled, and tables of jade groaned under the weight of exquisite delicacies. Yet at the heart of the grand assembly, the atmosphere had plummeted to a chilling, frozen stillness. All eyes were fixated, numb with disbelief, upon a man and a woman in the central courtyard. The man, clad in black robes and bearing an ancient, heavy sword upon his back, was none other than the Li clan's contemporary divine son, Li Ocean. Facing him was the Yaoqi saintess, Lin Qingzue, adorned in a rainbow-feathered robe, weeping profusely like rain. In her trembling hand, she held a fragrant sachet, embroidered with mandarin ducks, extending it forward as she choked out a tearful confession of her feelings. It was an open, heartfelt declaration of love, one that caused the surrounding prodigies to burn with jealousy. What happened next left everyone stunned. Li Ocean reached out, his hand rising to accept the sachet. A fleeting spark of joy ignited in Lin Qingshue's eyes. But who could have predicted that a sudden, sharp tearing sound would pierce the air? Li Aoshin had directly ripped the sachet into 2 pieces, then contemptuously tossed it to the ground and crushed it under his foot. An absolute silence descended upon the entire venue. Lin Qingshue's smile froze on her face, replaced by a torrent of cascading tears. "Senior brother Li." Li Aoshin gazed at her with frigid indifference, his chin haughtily raised. "Women only serve to impede my sword-drawing speed. Now begun. You are preventing me from studying the sword traces on the stone steel." These words ignited an explosive uproar throughout the hall. Innumerable male cultivators glared with eyes spitting fire, each wanting nothing more than to rush forward and strangle this arrogant individual. Lin Qingshui, mortified, was so enraged she wished to commit suicide. A dignified saintess, she had been utterly humiliated before the masses. "Li Aoshin, you and I are irreconcilable." An elder of Yaoqi slammed his hand down, rising abruptly. The overwhelming pressure of a quasi-emperor instantly bore down upon Li Aoshin like an oppressive mountain. Yet to everyone's astonishment, Li Aoshin displayed not a hint of fear. Instead, his battle intent surged, burning even brighter. But just as he prepared to draw his ancient blade and strike down his adversary, a sudden thunderous explosion rent the air. The grand mountain protection array of the Yaoqi sacred land instantly shattered, as an earth-shattering imperial might descended without warning. Under this oppressive aura, the arrogant elder Yaoqi, who moments ago had been so fierce, was now crushed to the ground, utterly unable to move. A great emperor has descended. How can this be? Have not all contemporary great emperors already departed for the ancient starry road? Everyone looked up at the sky in terror, only to see the sky rip apart and a giant foot clad in scaled armor emerge from the void. Then with a speed that defied all physical laws, it precisely kicked Li Aotian, who had been preparing to make a grand display, directly in the nape of his neck. With a resounding thud, Li Aotian shot downwards like a meteor, face-planting and plunging straight into the ground of the peach garden. Immediately after, a furious roar echoed throughout the heavens. This old man told you to go on a blind date, yet you dared to go around flirting. As the dust and smoke dispersed, the figure of the emperor emerged. With one hand, he held an imperial armament still in its sheath, and with the other, he dragged Li Aotian, beaten like a dog, out of the crater. The entire scene instantly fell into dead silence. The quasi-emperor elder of Yoqi trembled as he looked up. Changsheng, great emperor, haven't you already passed away 100,000 years ago? The emperor completely ignored him, instead dragging Li Aotian before him and slapping him twice. Is it that having no woman in your heart affects the speed of your sword drawing? Is that it? You even dared to tear a sachet. Back when this old man pursued your great-grandmother, I didn't even get a single sachet. You truly are a wretched wastrel born into privilege but utterly ungrateful. After delivering the beating, the emperor took a deep breath and his demeanor instantly transformed. The fierce, murderous expression vanished, replaced by a benevolent and gentle countenance tinged even with a hint of fawning. He then turned to Lin Qingsuo, who was stunned stiff with fear, and gently said, "Ah, this young lady looks truly exquisite. One can tell she possesses the blessing of good fortune in childbearing. Child, don't cry. This little brat has a few screws loose. Allow me to introduce myself. I am his ancestor. This marriage alliance, this old ancestor has agreed to it." As his words fell, the entire scene became silent as a tomb. Everyone felt their minds utterly unable to process what was happening. The legendary Changsheng Great Emperor, who was known to annihilate entire clans at the slightest disagreement, had actually returned to life. And furthermore, the first thing he did upon his revival was to beat his own descendant, then immediately propose marriage to the Yaoqi saintess. This approach feels rather unorthodox. Lin Qingshui blinked her tear-laden eyelashes, a look of utter bewilderment on her face. Old ancestor?" she stammered. The emperor nodded. Yes. Call me old ancestor, it's more intimate." He then waved his hand, gently helping Lin Qingshui to her feet and even meticulously wiped away the tear streaks from the corners of her eyes. "Child, that scoundrel was wrong to tear your sachet. To express our apologies and to show the sincerity of our Li clan," with a resounding clank, he pulled a heavy object from his sleeve and tossed it onto the jade table. It was a small tower, shimmering with 9-colored immortal light, none other than the ultimate imperial armament, the Hoshin Tower. The Yaoqi sacred lord, who had just arrived, nearly knelt on the spot at the sight of it. Indeed, the emperor declared, casually waving his hand as if it were a trifle, "Consider it compensation for that sachet." Furthermore, he continued, waving his sleeve once more. A root of immortal divine medicine, exuding a rich medicinal fragrance and shaped like a mystical creature, appeared. 3 volumes of great emperor scriptures, gleaming with profound Taoist runes, and supreme-grade spirit stones piled into mountains, instantly transformed the Yaoqi Peach Assembly into a glittering mountain of treasures. "These are the betrothal gifts." He smiled faintly at the Yaoqi sacred lord. "My dear-in-law, do you find this sufficient? If not, I can always go and borrow some from the neighboring prince's estate." "Ah, no. Borrow some." At this moment, the Yaoqi sacred lord felt his heart was about to leap out of his chest. This wasn't merely a betrothal gift. It was clearly an attempt to purchase the entire Yaoqi sacred land. Though deeply tempted, he still harbored a trace of hesitation. "Great Emperor, should we not perhaps consult the young ones on this matter?" The emperor, however, directly interrupted him, indicating that Li Aotian's opinion was of little consequence. He then turned and glared fiercely at Li Aotian, who had just managed to clamber to his feet. "Brat, tell me now, do you wish to marry this young lady?" Li Aotian shook his head, his neck still stiff. "Old ancestor, this descendant wishes to become a man whose path lies in the martial Tao, not in trivial romantic entanglements." Hearing this, our protagonist did not utter a second word, immediately drawing his sword and pressing it against the young man's neck. "Just what do you mean by this? Speak again, but choose your words with utmost care." He then declared, "If this ancestor's hand trembles and this blade falls, perhaps our Li clan will be forced to select a new divine son." Feeling the chilling aura emanating from the blade, Li Aotian for the first time knew fear. He swallowed hard, then stiffly turned his head to Lin Qingshuo. That scented sachet is truly exquisite," he stammered. "Might you embroider another for this one?" Our protagonist nodded in satisfaction. Sheathing his sword, our protagonist turned his gaze to the Yaoqi Saint Lord. "You see," he stated, "this matter of 2 hearts affectionate is thus settled. Tonight, the wedding consummation shall take place." The Saint Lord protested, "Great Emperor, this is far too hasty. An auspicious date has yet to be selected." To which our protagonist simply replied, "Meeting the day is better than choosing one." He offered the elder no opportunity to refuse. After all, the very lifespan displayed on the system interface was visibly diminishing with every passing second. "Guards," he bellowed, then violently seized at the very fabric of the void itself. The Li clan elders who had been discreetly observing the unfolding drama were instantly yanked forth from the void. "From this moment forth," he declared, "not even a fly shall be permitted to escape this place." With an overwhelming, heaven-shattering aura, our protagonist pointed at Lin Qingshuo and issued his command. "This is your young mistress," he proclaimed. "Escort her back to the Li clan at once." The elders instantly felt a surge of exhilaration as if injected with divine vitality. "The old ancestor is truly peerless," they whispered amongst themselves. "To directly seize the saintess as his own. This is indeed the true style of our imperial clan." Though many female cultivators from Yaoqi felt the entire affair was utterly preposterous, gazing upon the mountain of betrothal gifts and then upon our protagonist's world-shattering, oppressive aura, not a single soul dared to utter a word of protest. And so, under the astonished gazes of countless geniuses across the entire Eastern Barrens, Liaotian, now famously dubbed the most unyielding cultivator of 10,000 eras, carried the Yaoqi saintess upon his back, embarking on their journey home. That night, the Longevity Li clan was destined to remain sleepless. The entire divine island was illuminated as brightly as day by countless mystical night-shining pearls. Countless crimson silk ribbons fluttered gracefully between the myriad floating islands. Though guests from the various great sacred lands were arranged to feast within the side halls, every single face wore an expression of utter disbelief, as if they had encountered a specter. For who, indeed, had ever witnessed a resurrected great emperor, on his very first day back, beat his own direct descendant half to death, only to then forcefully compel him into wedding consummation? At this very moment, within the sword-seeking pavilion, a place nestled in the central palace of the divine realm, where Liaotian had habitually sought sword enlightenment, it was now being forcibly transformed into a bridal chamber. Meanwhile, concealed within the thicket of bushes just beyond the outer wall, a sight truly bizarre unfolded. 108 heads were neatly arranged in an orderly row. The great elder Li Tong's face was flushed a deep crimson like the color of a pig's liver. "Old ancestor," he whispered in dismay, "must we truly resort to such measures?" If news of this were to spread, he continued, "This old face, your reputation, could it truly be more vital than the very heritage of our Li clan?" Our protagonist did not even turn his head. His hand gripped an image recording stone tightly as he meticulously adjusted it, seeking the optimal angle. "Hush, silence your tongue." The young man, he stirs. The elders behind him, upon hearing this, instantly held their breaths, hundreds of pairs of eyes fixed intently upon the scene unfolding within the chamber. At this moment, the atmosphere within the room was eerily peculiar, reaching an absolute zenith of strangeness. Liaotian stood poised in the center of the chamber, while Lin Qingshui sat rigidly upon the wedding bed, her hands clutching the rich crimson of her bridal gown. As the seconds slowly bled into minutes, Liaotian at last made a move. He suddenly prostrated himself upon the ground, his fingers rhythmically tapping against the chamber floor. Lin Qingshuo's heart instantly began to pound within her chest. "Husband," she whispered, a hint of trepidation in her voice. What precisely are you doing?" Liaotian, his expression utterly solemn, slowly raised his head. "Hush," he cautioned, "silence, do not utter a sound. This very floor, the sound resonates hollowly beneath us." "Hollow, you say?" Lin Qingshuo stared, utterly bewildered. "Precisely." Liaotian, adopting a grave and analytical demeanor, explained, "Based on this one's myriad years of cultivation experience, such a hollow structure is commonly employed to conceal virulent poisons, covert crossbow mechanisms, or even self-destructing formations." Immediately thereafter, he produced a formation flag from within his robes and began to move swiftly and decisively around the perimeter of the room. Outside the wall, our protagonist, witnessing this unfolding spectacle, instantly felt his vision swim and his head pound. "That confounded, blithering idiot," he cursed under his breath. "That is the warmth condensing formation. I specifically had it activated, fearing they would be cold." Inside the chamber, Liaotian toiled tirelessly for a full half-hour, ultimately transforming the entire bridal chamber into an impenetrable fortress. Lin Qingjiu gazed at the shimmering defensive barriers around them, a mix of helplessness and amusement on her face, yet a faint warmth bloomed in her heart. "Husband, we are safe now, at least for the moment." Liaotian wiped the sweat from his brow, finally stepping towards the bed. Lin Qingshui's heart immediately leaped to her throat. Shamefaced, she closed her eyes, awaiting that sacred moment. To her surprise, Liaotian merely extended a finger to extinguish the burning candle. In the next instant, the entire chamber plunged into darkness. Lin Qingshuo immediately panicked. "What is wrong?" "Such bright light could easily expose our position," Liaotian's voice resonated from the darkness. "Furthermore, the smoke produced by burning red candles can impair the purity of one's lung meridians. For the sake of our cultivation, it is best extinguished." Meanwhile, outside the chambers, upon witnessing this scene, some of the elders began frantically pinching their philtrums. One hot-headed elder even unsheathed his blade. "Ancestor, I truly cannot bear it any longer. Allow me to enter and cleave him." "Calm yourselves, it is not yet time for despair. Take a deep breath, suppress the rage in your heart. If gentleness fails, we must resort to force. Bring forth that item." The Grand Elder, hearing this, tremblingly pulled out a purple gourd from within his robes. Etched upon it were 3 large characters, "Joyful Union Powder." "Empty its contents into the room for me," he ordered without hesitation. Immediately after, a wisp of pink smoke silently drifted through the door cracks into the heavily protected bridal chamber. In the darkness, Liaotian, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, suddenly felt his nose twitch. What is this scent? In the next instant, a surge of burning heat abruptly rose from his dantian, causing even his rock-solid sword heart to tremble violently. "This is ill. It is a poisonous miasma, and it has pierced through my protective array." Li Ocean was utterly horrified. He attempted to circulate his cultivation energy to expel the poison, but found that the more he did so, the hotter his body became. In his mind, Lin Qingshuo's exquisite countenance began to appear with maddening intensity. "It's so hot," a soft moan escaped Lin Qingshuo from the bed. She had already harbored deep feelings for Li Ocean, and now her reason completely abandoned her. Immediately thereafter, sounds of tearing fabric echoed in the darkness, accompanied by a primal, harmonious rhythm. Outside, upon hearing the commotions within, you heaved a sigh of relief. Detected successful grand wedding and consummation of a clan deity's marriage. Congratulations, host, for completing the mission. Reward, 500 years of lifespan. Received Earth-tier cultivation technique. Yin-Yang creation scripture. Fragment of an ultimate weapon. Myriad children, myriad blessings, pagoda. Golden matchmaker. Upon equipping, matchmaking success rate increased by 50%. In the next instant, a massive surge of vital life essence immediately poured into your body. Your chi and blood, which had become somewhat withered, once again boiled as if you had instantly returned to your youthful prime. Invigorating. Truly invigorating. Feeling the surging power within your body, you let out a loud roar. As you journeyed back, your mood soared. You retrieved the clan's list of eligible bachelors. Who shall be the next victim? Ah no, the next fortunate individual? Your gaze swept downwards, finally resting upon the second name on the list, Li Go. The next morning you led a group of elders, their auras imposing, towards an unnamed, desolate mountain in the back hills. This mountain bore the peculiar name Gao Dao Peak. From afar, even its rocks appeared polished smooth, as if to prevent anyone from hiding within crevices for an ambush. Dense formations of runic arrays surrounded the mountain. Observing this colossal headless turtle shell-like structure, your mouth twitched. Is this truly Li Go's dwelling? The second elder, following behind, helplessly explained, indeed, honored ancestor. Ever since that child was stung by a bee at the age of 6, his temperament completely changed. His cultivation philosophy became, as long as he hides deep enough, even the god of death will not find him. Upon hearing these words, you let out a cold snort. Immediately you stepped forward, gathered chi in your dantian, and roared, "Li Go, I am your ancestor. Get out here, for I am the Grand Emperor who has been in seclusion for 10,000 years, solely pursuing immortality." Now, having just awakened, you suddenly learned you had only 3 days left to live. The only way to prolong your life was to rely on clan members marrying and bearing children. One would assume that an imperial clan, having inherited its legacy for countless years, would have long since seen its population explode. Would not simply birthing a few great-grandsons allow him to be revived on the spot? But the next instant, seeing the 108 remaining bachelors, you were plunged into a deep state of shock regarding Li Go. "I am your ancestor. Get out here at once." Your voice resonated like thunder, yet from within the mountain, there was no reaction whatsoever. A long while later, a small fissure suddenly opened on the mountain, and something resembling a periscope extended out. Immediately afterwards, a robotic, mechanical voice resounded. "Warning, warning, high-energy lifeform detected approaching. Identify yourself. Please state the password within 3 seconds, otherwise all will face annihilation." Hearing this, a vein visibly throbbed on your forehead. "Li Gao, can you not see clearly? I am your great-great-grandfather. Do not dream of deceiving me." The mechanical voice was filled with skepticism. "Everyone knows the great Emperor Changsheng passed away 100,000 years ago. You are surely an outer realm demonic fiend in disguise, or perhaps a disguised ancestor from a neighboring royal clan, attempting to lure me out to murder me and seize my treasures." No sooner had the words finished than Go Dao Feng abruptly activated its defense mode. Countless dark gun barrels extended from within the mountain, and immediately after, a hail of smoky talisman arrows filled the sky, raining down as if costing nothing. "This is preposterous, utterly preposterous." You were so enraged you could only laugh. A dignified great emperor, treated as a villain and guarded against by his own descendant. Too lazy to even dodge, you directly extended a hand to grasp the void itself. Space seemed to instantly freeze. The attacks that had filled the sky all halted mid-air, then disintegrated into dust. As for that gigantic sky-shrouding golden hand, it seized the entire Gao Daofeng peak itself. The next instant, the earth rumbled and the mountains vibrated. Under the terrified gazes of the elders, you then uprooted the entire mountain from the earth and frantically shook it as one would a rattle drum. "Are you coming out or not? Help me." From deep within the mountain, Li Go's miserable shriek finally resounded. "Stop shaking, I'll come out, I'll come out." Hearing this, you finally ceased your actions, casually tossing the mountain back to the ground. With a mighty crash, the mountain split open with a large fissure, and an iron contraption armed to the teeth rolled out. This individual wore 9 layers of soft armor beneath a layer of profound, iron-heavy armor. On his head was a helmet to guard against divine sense, windfire wheels propelled him, and in his hands 2 supreme-grade earth-evading talismans were poised for activation. This was none other than Li Go. The moment he emerged, he intended to flee, but was instantly fixed in place by an immobilization technique. "And where do you think you're going?" You walked over and tapped his helmet, much like one would test a watermelon. "Take off this turtle shell at once." "No, this is my very being. If I take it off, I'll surely die." Li Go cried out tearfully, "Patriarch, spare my life. I admit my sin. I shouldn't have doubted you, but I truly do not wish to go outside. It's too dangerous outside. There are meteorites falling, powerful experts trying to seize bodies, and even essence-draining female cultivators. It's too terrifying." "Essence-draining female cultivators, you say?" Hearing this, your eyes gleamed. "Well said, this patriarch has come today precisely to send you to be harvested by them." What? Li Go was utterly stunned. You casually pulled out a portrait from within your robes. The woman in the portrait wore fiery red robes, treading upon lightning, her gaze as sharp as a predator's. Li Go merely glanced at it and immediately began to tremble violently. This is Sudeki, the holy maiden of the heavenly demonic sect. Patriarch, why did you take out her portrait? Stop your stuttering nonsense. She is your fiancée. Hearing this, Li Go's eyes rolled back and he fainted on the spot. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the heavenly demonic sect, the foremost villainous force of the Eastern Desolation, was located in the soul-severing abyss, shrouded in mist and bone-chilling vapor. Ordinarily, malevolent winds howl here, and within a 1,000-mile radius, not a blade of grass grows. Cultivators passing by would only wish for 2 more legs to flee faster, but today this place was bustling with unprecedented activity. The resounding footsteps shook the very earth as our protagonist led the way, carrying upon his shoulder a heavy ancient bronze coffin, each step leaving a deep crater in the ground. Following closely behind were 108 warriors of the Li clan, armed to the teeth and led by Great Elder Li Tong. Their spirit artifacts gleaming with cold light, each warrior exuded a palpable aura of killing intent. Most conspicuous amidst the formation was Li Go, bound by Nanhua. His face utterly despairing, he was dragged along by 2 burly warriors like a common cur. At the same time, the main stronghold of the heavenly demonic sect had erupted into utter chaos. A scout, tumbling and crawling, burst into the great hall, wailing loudly, "Disaster! The Li clan has arrived at our gates." With a sharp crack, the wine cup in the hand of heavenly demonic sect master Xue Li shattered instantly. He abruptly rose, his quasi-emperor's pressure erupting without restraint. The scout, oblivious to the true cause, tremblingly reported that the leader was none other than our protagonist, Great Emperor Xianxia. His killing intent soared to the heavens, and he carried a massive coffin. It seemed an immense calamity was brewing. Upon hearing this, Xue Li's hair stood on end in fury. He immediately ordered the activation of the sect guarding grand formation and summoned all disciples to prepare for a desperate struggle. In an instant, demonic ki billowed throughout the heavenly demonic sect. Countless demonic cultivators ascended the walls, forming a solemn battle array awaiting the enemy. Outside the mountain gate, our protagonist looked up at the rising black light barrier and the dense crowds, his brows furrowed in thought. Such a grand display, he mused. Could it be they knew of my arrival and specially organized a welcoming ceremony? With a shrug, he slammed the bronze coffin onto the ground. A deafening clang echoed as the ground directly cracked and fractured. Immediately after, our protagonist cleared his throat, channeled his spirit energy, and bellowed towards the sect. "Listen up, you little devils inside. This old man has specially brought a grand gift today to discuss matters of great importance with your sect master." From atop the city walls, Xue Li sneered upon hearing these words. "Li Changsheng, spare us your hypocritical pretense. The righteous and demonic are eternal foes. If you wish to fight, then fight. What is the protagonist here, you ask? I'm not here to fight. I'm here for a marriage proposal." "A marriage proposal?" Xue Li was stunned, then raged. "You bring so many people, carrying a coffin and a bound man, and you call that a marriage proposal? Do you take me for a fool?" Our protagonist lowered his head, looked at the ancient bronze coffin, and only then realized this object indeed bore a striking resemblance to a coffin. "A misunderstanding," he quickly explained. "This is a betrothal gift." With that, he raised his hand and slapped the coffin with a resonant clang. The lid burst open, and in an instant, chaotic golden light shot into the heavens. Within, one could see an immortal medicine in the shape of a qilin, 3 ancient great emperor scriptures emanating the aura of the Grand Tao, and 10 transparent, glittering divine origin crystals containing supreme primal power. This light was too dazzling, directly illuminating the gloomy sect-guarding grand formation of the heavenly demonic sect. The demonic cultivators on the city walls were collectively silenced, each jaw dropped, saliva dripping onto the ground. Xue Li's eyes nearly popped out of his skull, his previous killing intent instantly transforming into avarice. Seeing that his point was made, our protagonist chuckled softly and asked, "Is this sincerity enough?" He then candidly declared his intention to propose marriage on behalf of his useless nephew Li Go to the saintess Sudaki. Upon hearing this, Xue Li gulped audibly. He turned to look at the elders beside him, only to find the old men nodding their heads like pounding garlic, vigorously urging him to quickly sell the saintess. Or rather, marry her off. Xue Li took a deep breath, trying to maintain the last vestiges of his sectmaster's dignity. With a wave of his hand, he declared, "Deal!" At this moment, Li Go, still bound at the back of the procession, closed his eyes in despair, lamenting, "Even the heavenly demonic sect master betrays for money. This world truly has no justice." Just then, a seductive yet deeply chilling voice echoed from deep within the heavenly demonic sect. "Sell me for medicinal pills? Old man, have I given my consent?" The next second, a blood-red saber light suddenly swept across the sky, carrying with it an aura of world-destroying might slicing directly towards Li Go. "To marry this maiden, first you must ask if my saber agrees." Sudaki's saber strike harbored absolutely no intention of leaving him alive. Facing this life-claiming saber strike, Li Go's survival instinct erupted. The spiritual ropes binding him immediately snapped apart. Immediately after, a resonant hum filled the air. 360 streams of golden defensive light manifested from the sky like a colossal, unbreakable golden egg, encasing him completely. Not only that, all sorts of protective treasures on his person, such as his heart-protecting mirror, clarity talismans, and counter-damage armor, were fully activated at this very moment. With a resounding clang, that world-destroying blood-red saber light struck the golden egg. Sparks flew in all directions, but it only managed to shatter 3 layers of armor. Sudaki was utterly stunned. After all, her saber strike possessed the power to slay a saint, yet it couldn't even break through this brat's defenses. Witnessing this scene, our protagonist happily slapped his thigh. How's that? Did I not say this lad was good at taking a beating? Saintus, this is a rare top-grade sandbag. Bringing him home as a training dummy would be excellent. Hearing these words, Sudaki narrowed her eyes, a hint of intrigue playing upon them. Very well, I shall grant you an opportunity, but I will impose a special form of discipline upon you. If you can survive this night, I will acknowledge you. At the mention of discipline, Li Go's face paled considerably. He stammered, asking if it would involve the infamous tiger chair or chili water. Yet Sudaki merely chuckled like a mischievous demoness, only saying that it would be even more stimulating. In a flash, night descended. The air within the heavenly demonic saintess's bedchambers grew eerily strange, various frightening yet somewhat embarrassing instruments of torture hanging on the walls. At this very moment, Li Go was still cowering within his golden egg-shaped refuge, like a turtle retracting its head. He had even pasted a note on its surface, reading, "Cultivating in seclusion, do not disturb." In stark contrast, Sudaki had changed into a thin red silk nightgown, lazily reclining on the bed, playfully twirling a specially crafted, wicked-looking whip. Her soft voice purred, asking, "Is my husband planning to hide in that egg for all eternity?" Li Go's muffled, awkward voice echoed from within the egg. He swore he would only emerge if she promised not to kill him, not to drain his essence, and not to refine his bones into elixirs. Sudachi clicked her tongue in disdain. Her body flickered, and she instantly appeared beside the egg. A long, dark needle now gleamed in her hand. She threatened, stating that if he didn't emerge by the count of 3, she would pierce him like a porcupine. This time, Li Go was genuinely terrified. By the count of 2, he was already crying, begging her not to strike. He then cautiously began dismantling layer after layer of his protective barriers, revealing his true form only after removing a full 100 layers. Even then, he remained clad in soft armor, clutching a teleportation talisman, cowering in a corner while warily eyeing Sudaki. Seeing him act as if facing a formidable foe, Sudaki couldn't help but let out a peal of laughter. Her laughter was like 100 blossoms unfurling, captivating all who heard it. Even Li Go, who had never harbored any desires for women, found himself momentarily stunned. Immediately after, Sudachi advanced, extended a finger, gently raising Li Go's chin, and softly declared that she found him quite pleasing to the eye. Far more genuine than those hypocritical gentlemen who constantly spout benevolence, righteousness, and morality. Faced with such sudden intimacy, Li Go stammered, asking what exactly she intended to do. A sly glint flickered in Sudaki's eyes. She stated bluntly, "Naturally, I wish to consummate our marriage." The very next second, no sooner had her words finished echoing than she forcefully pushed, pinning Li against the wall and pressing her body against his. Just as Li Go screamed in alarm, Sudachi gave him no chance, directly pressing her lips to his. Li Go wasn't drained of his cultivation or turned into a dried husk as he had feared. Instead, he felt a surge of incredibly pure primordial yin and energy transfer into him. This unexpected turn of events left Li Go wide-eyed and utterly bewildered. Sudaki released him, then whispered into his ear, explaining that she cultivated a yin-yang dual cultivation technique where dual cultivation benefited both parties. Hearing this explanation, Li Go's taut nerves finally relaxed. So she wasn't trying to harm him after all. Of course not. Sudaki cast a flirtatious glance, adding, "But if you've entered my demonic sect, then from now on you must obey my commands." "I will obey, I will obey." Li Go immediately nodded vigorously, like a garlic pestle. He thought to himself, as long as she doesn't kill me, I'll do anything she asks. Good boy. Satisfied, Sudaki scooped him up and tossed him onto the bed. "Then tonight I will be above and you below." Meanwhile, outside the bridal chamber, someone heard the commotion within and couldn't help but exclaim, "This demoness is truly ruthless." Just then, the system's notification suddenly rang out, detecting that the Li clan's second divine son, Li Go, has successfully completed his grand wedding. Bridal chamber rituals are commencing. Congratulations, host. You have received 800 years of lifespan, the Emperor tier defensive weapon Black Tortoise Heaven Suppressing Armor, and the special formation Absolute Domain. What in the world is this black turtle shell? His mouth twitched. System, do you have some kind of grudge against me? If this thing is given to Langer, will he ever be able to go out again? Isn't this clearly forcing him into eternal hiding? But just as he was about to withdraw his consciousness, a terrifying roar suddenly echoed from the heavens. A thunderous crash ripped through the void, and a colossal golden war chariot descended from the swirling chaos above. A massive banner was planted on the chariot, emblazoned with a colossal Wang character. Immediately after, an enraged roar erupted from within the war chariot. "Li Changsheng, that old immortal fool, how dare you snatch the bride the Wen clan has set its sights on? 100 millennia, all spent solely in pursuit of eternal life." Having just awakened, he suddenly learned he had but 3 days left to live. The sole method to prolong his life was to rely on a clan member marrying and bearing children. At this very moment, a fierce roar echoed from within a war chariot. The one who arrived was the Wang clan's old ancestor, Wang Tengfei, the sworn enemy of the Li clan. Recall that in his youth, Wang Tengfei was hailed as possessing the aptitude of a great emperor, yet he was suppressed by you his entire life, forced to live in obscurity. Now, witnessing your revival, he once again believed he could achieve his ambitions. After years of secluded cultivation and achieving a breakthrough, he now eagerly sought to flaunt his might and make his name known across the heavens. At this moment, Wang Tengfei stood upon his golden chariot, furiously pointing at you and berating your outrageousness. He claimed his grandson Wang Batian had long set his sights on this holy maiden of the demonic heavenly sect, even preparing the betrothal gifts, only for you to snatch her away mid-journey. Immediately afterwards, even more enraged, he uttered a vicious threat. Today, if you do not hand over Sudaji and compensate with 10 Emperor-grade weapons, my Wang clan shall raze this place to the ground. Under this terrifying pressure, everyone in the demonic heavenly sect trembled, fearing that when immortals clashed, mortals would suffer. Yet you merely stood up leisurely from the rooftop, picking your ear with your pinky finger, a look of utter impatience on your face. What is that intolerable clamor? Why such empty bluster? This time, Wang Tengfei was utterly enraged. He pointed at you and cursed. Do not presume that being revived makes you formidable. He arrogantly declared he had seen through your withered vital essence, claiming it was merely a fleeting surge before death, while he, at his peak, was a half-step great emperor, his majesty inviolable. Hearing the terms half-step great emperor and peak, you merely chuckled, instantly deciding to use him as a grand spectacle for your future granddaughters-in-law. The very next second you stepped into the void. Without unleashing any heaven and earth dharma manifestations, you simply raised a hand, sending a palm strike directly through the air. There were no fancy divine abilities, merely pure physical strength coupled with an emperor's oppressive might. Facing this seemingly casual palm strike, Wang Tengfei roared, countering with a punch that unleashed a primordial chaos emperor fist to meet it head-on. But that seemingly mighty punch-wind, upon colliding with your palm, instantly burst like a fragile soap bubble. Immediately thereafter, a crisp, resounding slap echoed throughout heaven and earth. Wang Tengfei, along with the golden war chariot beneath him, spun hundreds of times in the air before crashing into a distant massive mountain, directly flattening it. The entire scene fell into immediate profound silence. With just one palm strike, the half-step great emperor Wang Tengfei was defeated. You disdainfully blew on your palm, a look of utter contempt on your face. I hadn't even used my full strength, yet you've already fallen, you mused. It seems the villains of this generation are truly lacking. From the rubble, Wang Tengfei painfully crawled out, his face etched with disbelief. How can this be? How could you possess such power? Clearly your lifespan is almost depleted. You let out a cold snort, clasped your hands behind your back, and adopted a posture that proclaimed, how could a mere you comprehend this old man's true strength? Scram! If you dare disturb me again, I shall exterminate your entire clan, you roared. The sound, like a tsunami, struck the Wang clan's army. Instantly, all the Wang clan cultivators spat blood, so terrified they turned and fled. Wang Tengfei, filled with boundless hatred, left behind the saying, 30 years east of the river, 30 years west of the river, then transformed into a streak of light, fleeing in a desperate state. Watching his retreating figure, you curled your lips into a smirk. Villains often die from talking too much, you mused, but keeping him alive has its uses. After this incident, your formidable reputation once again echoed throughout the Eastern Barrens. Everyone realized that the invincible great emperor had truly returned, and he was even more unreasonable and protective than before. Having dealt with this external matter, you did not pause, immediately beginning the search for your next objective. Li Ergo, whose true name was Li Xinga, had earned his nickname due to a personality uncannily similar to a husky. He was a branch family genius of the Li clan, a renowned beast tamer whose traits included an unwavering devotion to canines, peculiar aesthetics, and a profound obsession with fur. Not long after, you arrived at the Li clan's beast garden. As you stepped in, you immediately overheard an earnest declaration of affection. Ah Huang, only you truly understand me. How could those other women ever compare to you? They only know how to demand spirit stones and magic treasures. Only you, with just a single bone, will follow me and even wag your tail. You looked closely, only to see a young man clad in animal fur clothing, tightly embracing a large yellow dog. That yellow dog looked utterly miserable, clearly coerced into this unwelcome display. For a moment, you felt an absurd dazzle, your stomach churning, and you couldn't help but cough a few times. Startled, Li Ergo hastily hid the yellow dog behind his back. Old ancestor, a Huang is merely a dog, and ours is a pure friendship. Li Ergo stammered. You were instantly filled with profound exasperation. I have no interest in your dog, you stated. I ask you, do you desire to find a wife? Li Ergo resolutely refused. Humans are too troublesome, he declared. Moreover, they lack fur, and their touch simply feels unpleasant. Hearing this, your worldview was instantly profoundly shaken. No fur feels unpleasant, you echoed. What manner of bizarre reasoning is this? Then what if it were someone with fur, beautiful, immensely powerful, and capable of transforming into a human? You offered a tempting proposal. With a smile like a wolf grandmother enticing Little Red Riding Hood, Li Ergo's eyes instantly lit up, his face filled with eager anticipation as he asked, is it a demoness from the beast tribe? Astute, you flicked your finger, continuing to paint a vivid picture for him. The third princess of the East Sea Dragon Palace. Though she lacks fur, her scales are exquisitely smooth to the touch. But knowing your discerning taste, what then of the Tiger Tribe Empress of the southern border's myriad monster kingdom? Adorned with abundant fur and striking stripes, in her true form she possesses majestic beast ears and a flowing tail. Does such a vision stir your heart? This time Li Ergo swallowed hard, drool nearly escaping his lips. His face was lost in a daze, imagining a wife with beast ears and a tail, yet a flicker of worry crossed him. He had heard the hot-tempered Tiger Empress was known to devour those she deemed trash. With this ancestor by your side, what is there to fear? You angrily kicked Li Ergo's rear, urging him to pack his belongings. Let us go forth and capture a tigress to be your wife. At that very moment, within the imperial palace of the southern border's myriad monster kingdom, furious roars echoed. Outrageous! How dare they come to my beast tribe and force a marriage upon me? The tiger empress, Bai Ling, her head adorned with a pair of pristine white tiger ears, a majestic tiger tail sweeping behind her, was fiercely pounding her fist upon the throne. Clad in tiger skin battle armor that revealed her long, slender legs and toned abdomen, she exuded a raw, untamed beauty. Has that Li Changsheng gone mad? Can his grandnephew not find a single woman among the human race to dare harbor designs upon this empress? This empress is a tiger, not a mere cat. Below her, the various monster kings were equally incensed. Their fury was palpable. Oh, my esteemed in-law, there's no need for such anger. Precisely then, a cunning voice resonated. You, along with Li Ergu, descended upon them with an overwhelming aura. Though my grandnephew is named Ergo, his bloodline is pure, a sacred youthful body of the human race. The moment Li Ergo laid eyes upon Bai Ling, his eyes immediately shone with excitement, unable to suppress a sudden cry. In the very next instant, the entire assembly fell into a desperate silence, covering their faces. Inwardly, they all cried out, "It's over!" This grandnephew was doomed. His first words upon meeting her were nothing more than a dog's bark. Bai Ling, meanwhile, trembled with rage, gritting her teeth as she demanded, "What did you just utter?" Li Ergu stammered in reply, Your tail is simply beautiful. Could I stroke it?" The moment these words left his mouth, Bai Ling utterly exploded. She let out a ferocious roar, transforming into a colossal white tiger lunging forward with a blood-filled maw. Yet who could have foreseen that Li Ergo, far from fleeing, would instead greet her with an ecstatic expression, arms wide open, his eyes brimming with affection. You sighed helplessly, directly unleashing an imperial weapon to subdue Bai Ling, leaving Li Ergo to resolve the situation himself. Whether he could win his wife and bring her home rested solely on his own abilities. Immediately thereafter, Li Ergu charged forward, but instead of attacking, he skillfully retrieved a massive specially crafted magic treasure from his spatial ring. Atop it, a luminous spirit orb dangled, swinging back and forth before Bai Ling's eyes. In that instant, Bai Ling's colossal, once ferocious tiger eyes were captivated by the spirit orb. Involuntarily, her gaze tracked the dangling cat teaser as it swayed. To her horror, she discovered her inner feline instincts had been awakened. Her body, uncontrollable, yearned to chase that fuzzy orb. This was the 18th art of feline enticement, deep pursuit. Li Ergo, with a solemn expression, instructed, "Do not move. Allow me to scratch your chin." "It's very comforting," he stated. With those words, he truly reached out, boldly scratching Bai Ling's chin. The ensuing spectacle shattered the worldview of all the monster kings. They watched as the incomparably majestic and domineering Tiger Empress, under Li Ergu's practiced fur-stroking technique, slowly closed her eyes. Eventually, she transformed back into her human form, melting softly into Li Ergu's arms, her face radiating pure bliss. At this moment, you stood dumbfounded, musing to yourself, "The ultimate form of a dog licker is a beast tamer. This grandnephew of mine truly possesses some skill." Now, Li Ergu embraced Bai Ling, his face beaming with a happiness as though he had conquered the entire world. He then declared on the spot, "This marriage I accept." Though Bai Ling had suddenly regained her senses, her body honestly did not wish to leave his warm embrace. Indeed, she even desired a few more scratches. Li Ergu gently promised her a home where you can shed fur every day and be scratched whenever you itch. The moment these words were uttered, Bai Ling's face flushed crimson and the violence within her heart miraculously vanished. You felt a shiver run down your spine, goosebumps prickling your skin. Disgusted, you waved your hand, telling them to stop their nauseating display. "If it is done, then return and wed." Just then, the system's notification chimed within your mind. Ding, cross-species blind date for Li Ergo successfully completed. Reward, 1,000 years of lifespan and Earth-grade cultivation technique. The Myriad Beast Control Manual and the special physique, Myriad Beast Affinity Body. Witnessing your lifespan surge, a wide grin spread across your face as you eagerly inquired about the next candidate. To your surprise, the Grand Elder reported that the fourth Elder was an artifact refining fanatic, rumored to have fallen in love with a puppet and was preparing to infuse it with a soul. This news caused the smile on your face to instantly freeze. "Good heavens," you muttered, "how many more strange individuals does the Li clan truly possess? When will these days ever end?" Not long after, within the ancestral hall of the divine Li clan, shrouded in auspicious mist, 3 consecutive grand weddings caused the entire clan's fortune to surge dramatically. You sat cross-legged in the deepest sanctuary of the ancestral hall. Just then, the clear notification tone of the system echoed. "Host has recently facilitated the union of 3 couples, increasing the clan's fortune. Rewards are now being settled." You not only received 10 years of cultivation, but also gained a peculiar divine ability named a gaze that impregnates. Though limited to a spiritual consciousness attack that merely induces a mental illusion of pregnancy, it was undoubtedly an utterly humiliating technique. Furthermore, you received a key fragment to an ancient secret realm. A resonant boom accompanied the roar of the cultivation within your body. The invincible sensation from 100,000 years ago was gradually returning. Next, you gazed at the secret realm key fragment within the system space, musing, "This ancient secret realm sounds like nothing more than a minor dungeon instance." Just then, Grand Elder Li Tong entered with a joyful expression, announcing loudly, "There is joyous news." Your eyes lit up. "Is someone else getting married?" you eagerly asked. Li Tong, however, scratched his head awkwardly, explaining that Tianhuang City was about to host a grand auction, a once-in-a-century event. Rumor had it that the main treasure this time was a key to the tomb of the legendary Hongchen Empress. You stroked your chin, musing that the name sounded remarkably familiar. After all, 100,000 years ago, she was the wealthiest woman in the cultivation world and a renowned bachelorette at that. It was said that before her ascension, she had left behind countless treasures as a dowry, awaiting those fated to receive them. Li Tong excitedly added, although the Li clan is now prosperous to support so many daughters-in-law, we must acquire even more wealth. You nodded, agreeing wholeheartedly. Wives were expensive, and children even more so. Moreover, your grandsons had been cooped up at home for far too long. These grandsons were on the verge of becoming mentally warped from sheer confinement. They needed to be taken out for a change of scenery. The next moment, you abruptly rose, imperial might enveloping you, and immediately issued a command. This time, I shall personally lead the team to the grand auction. When asked who you would bring, you let out a cold laugh, deciding to summon those 3 recently wedded scoundrels to accompany you. For men cannot always be immersed in pleasure. They must pursue their own aspirations. An hour passed in a flash. Above the Wang Clan Plaza, a 9-dragon war chariot, 1,000 jang in length and with a hull crafted from dark gold, hovered majestically. You stood proudly on the dragon's head, hands clasped behind your back, a banner fluttering in the wind. Your imposing aura instantly reached new, awe-inspiring heights. But when you turned your head to glance behind you, the sight of 3 young men, heads bowed in dejection, infuriated you beyond measure. Lie Ocean, with one hand on his hip and a pale, weak face, was moaning excuses about needing to comprehend the grand Tao of yin and yang, whining, "Can I truly not be excused from this journey?" Li Go, on the other hand, was armed to the teeth and covered in invisibility talismans, muttering about how crowded Tianhuang City would be. He insisted it would be best to cheer you on from the safety of home. Most ridiculous of all was Li Ergo, who had a miniature white tiger perched on his neck. He made the excuse that his linger didn't want to venture into crowded places, fearing she would be targeted. Without a second word, you raised your hand and boxed each of their ears. Then, you uttered a chilling threat: if any of you disgrace the Li clan on this journey, I will personally send them back to their mother's womb to be reconceived. Immediately afterward, you issued a thunderous command. The 9-dragon war chariot immediately tore through the void, soaring rapidly towards Tianhuang City, the most prosperous metropolis in Zhangzhou. Our protagonist, who had secluded himself for 100,000 years solely in pursuit of immortality, had only just reawakened when he suddenly learned he had but 3 days left to live. Therefore, to prepare grand meeting gifts for his future descendants, he had personally decided to lead the expedition to this once-in-a-century grand auction. Meanwhile, Tianhuang City, the largest neutral city in the eastern desolate lands, was jointly managed by the Heavenly Dao Pavilion and the Myriad Treasures Tower. Outside the city walls, radiant light already flowed as countless divine rainbows streaked across the sky, and cultivators at the city gates discussed animatedly. Just then, the sky abruptly darkened as a terrifying, suffocating pressure suddenly descended. The void itself trembled, revealing 9 ancient flood dragons, each 100 jang long, pulling a black 9-dragon war chariot as it tore through the shrouding mists. The flying ships of the great sacred lands, which had been parked at the city gates preparing to queue for entry, now seemed insignificant. Compared to this colossal war chariot, they appeared as mere toys. In an instant, the crowd below gasped in unceasing astonishment. The primordial saint son Ye Wudao, enveloped in auspicious purple qi, his brow furrowed as he bellowed, "Who is so ignorant of the rules? Flying is forbidden within Tianhuang City. Descend immediately." But you paid him no heed whatsoever. The 9-dragon war chariot, under his command, not only refused to slow but instead dramatically accelerated, hurtling forward. The very next second, our protagonist, standing proudly on the chariot's bow, responded with an utterly arrogant voice. "Noble, you say? This lord's words are simple. Get out of my way, or this lord will ram you into oblivion." Hearing this, Ye Wudao's face darkened considerably. When the other party proclaimed, "I am from the primordial beginning Holy Land," our protagonist merely sneered. "Your primordial beginning? My foot!" Standing on the war chariot's bow, he didn't even spare them a glance, directly commanding the 9-dragon war chariot to ram forward. A thunderous explosion ripped through the air as the purple Chi coming east vessel was instantly flipped multiple times in midair, finally crashing with a deafening boom at the base of the city wall. In that instant, the entire scene fell into an unnerving silence. Every soul present stared, mouths agape, utterly unable to believe what they had just witnessed. For no one had ever imagined that someone would dare to openly humiliate the primordial beginning Holy Land in broad daylight, much less with such a crude and brazen display of force. All eyes were fixed on the audacious figure as everyone secretly wondered, just who was this individual to possess such boundless arrogance? Soon after, the 9-dragon war chariot slowly descended towards the city gates, our protagonist stepping forth, drawing countless astonished gazes. Then, with a contemptuous glance at Ye Wudao, who was just pulling himself from the wreckage, our protagonist nonchalantly admonished him, "Brat, do not rely solely on your backing. Next time you venture out, remember to consult the Imperial Almanac." He then directly declared his title, adding, "If you are not convinced, then simply endure it." Upon hearing his proclaimed title, the crowd instantly erupted into a clamor of shock and fear. Thus, whispers of "flee" spread amongst them as they feared attracting the attention of this notorious devil, who was said to be roaming the lands in search of a granddaughter-in-law. Observing this scene, our protagonist nodded in satisfaction. Turning to his 3 grandsons, he instructed them, "Do you see now? This is true bearing. From now on, when you venture out, do not emulate the frivolous antics of women. Remember, the true principle lies in the size of one's fist. Li Ocean, deep in thought, instinctively stroked the hilt of his sword. His eyes burning with anticipation, he eagerly asked, "Can we slay that person from just now?" Li Gutu shivered, his neck recoiling. He fretted that having just arrived and already provoked such enmity, they might face assassination. Thus he suggested, "Let us first establish a defensive formation." Meanwhile, the mini white fox nestled in Liurgu's arms extended its tiny paws and let out a low growl. In the blink of an eye, the group arrived at the 10,000 Treasures Pavilion, located at the heart of Tianhuang City. It was a colossal floating palace, constructed with spatial-grade techniques, vast enough to easily accommodate 100,000 people. At this very moment, the auction hall was already packed, not a single seat empty, and the atmosphere was brimming with fervent anticipation. Our protagonist, without hesitation, reserved the heavenly character room number 1, boasting the most superior view. This very room, originally designated for the primordial beginning Holy Land, was unceremoniously seized by him with a single domineering declaration, "I am a great emperor." Now inside the room, our protagonist reclined comfortably, legs crossed, his gaze nonchalantly sweeping across the entire auction hall. Beside him, Li Ocean inquired, "What is our objective for this occasion?" He replied, "Naturally, it is the key to Empress Mu Hongshen's legacy. However, should any treasures suitable for our companions appear before then, we shall not let them slip away." Immediately thereafter, the grand auction swiftly commenced. The auctioneer was a woman of the Tiger clan, possessing a captivating figure and a voice as soft as honey. With just a few captivating words, she instantly ignited the atmosphere of the entire hall. The first item up for bid was the 9 Revolution Soul Reversion Pill, a treasure of quasi-emperor grade. Its starting price, a staggering 100,000 divine origin stones. In the grand hall below, cultivators began to frantically outbid one another. Worth? But our protagonist didn't even lift an eyelid, lazily uttering 2 words, "No need." Immediately after, the Tiger clan woman on stage presented the second auction item, the formidable weapon of the saintly prince, Jin Hang the Demon Slayer. Its starting price was even more astronomical, reaching 500,000 divine origin stones. Our protagonist cast a fleeting glance at the glittering weapon, a mocking smile playing on his lips, and once more, decisively rejected it. Over a dozen more items, each hailed as a precious treasure by ordinary cultivators, were presented. Yet, in our protagonist's discerning eyes, they were nothing more than piles of rusty, broken scrap. After all, he was an ancient monster, a survivor from the Golden Era 100,000 years ago, an age where even the very earth was said to be paved with gold. Gazing upon the paltry offerings of the current age, he couldn't help but inwardly lament, "Truly, this generation of the cultivation world is inferior to the last." It was precisely at this moment that the auctioneer raised a palm-sized ink-black piece of metal. With an air of profound mystery, she announced, "This artifact is indestructible, impenetrable even to the purifying sacred flames." Its starting price instantly soared to 1 million divine origin stones. Within the room, Li Godu, who had been dejectedly cowering in a corner, suddenly snapped his head up. His once lifeless eyes now blazed with an undeniable avarice. Immediately thereafter, he trembled with such agitation that his voice itself shifted. He quickly explained, "My intuition tells me that this item can greatly enhance my protective shell. Ah, no, pardon me, it would significantly boost the defenses of my Xuanwu armor. With it, I even believe I might withstand a great emperor's palm strike without perishing." Our protagonist's gaze swept over the auction stage, and a flicker of astonishment flashed deep within his eyes. "Unbelievable," he mused, "it's the legendary dragon pattern black gold. Though merely palm-sized, it is truly a rare and invaluable treasure." "Very well," he conceded. Then, pressing the bidding button, he lazily declared, 2 million. 2 million! A direct doubling of the price. The entire hall instantly plunged into absolute silence. Every eye turned towards heavenly character room number 1 as whispers began to circulate, wondering which rich lord's pampered son was brazenly flaunting 2 million divine origin stones. But who could have foreseen that at this very moment, from the adjacent heavenly character room number 2, a frigid voice would suddenly announce its own bid? Our protagonist's divine sense instantly surged forth like a tidal wave, revealing the bidder to be none other than Ye Wudao, the very saint son of the primordial beginning, Holy Land he had so casually sent flying earlier. Beside him stood an old man cloaked in black, radiating a chilling aura, a formidable figure from the Yin-Yang sect. A cold smile played on your lips as you once again offered a price. 3 million, 3 million. Ye Wudao gritted his teeth, mustering all his strength. "Today, I will make you bleed." 5 million, your voice remained calm, instantly causing an uproar among the spectators. 5 million spirit stones for a piece of scrap iron? Is this the true power of an imperial clan? Inside private room number 2, Ye Wudao's face turned ashen. Just as he was about to bid again, the old man in black robes behind him held him back. After all, their true goal was the final key. Let that old geezer have it. Ye Wudao sullenly slumped back into his seat. 5 million once, 5 million twice. Sold! With the high-pitched declaration of the Fox Clan maiden, Li Go, hugging the dragon-patterned black gold that had just been delivered, was so moved that tears welled up in his eyes. He loudly exclaimed, "Grand Ancestor is truly magnificent. May Grand Ancestor live for 100 years!" "You irritably cursed, Scram. This old man desires true immortality." Next, the auction completely transformed into your personal show. As long as it was an item that caught the eye of one of your Lai family grandnephews, or one that could please your grandniece-in-law, you would effortlessly purchase it with a wave of your hand. Everyone couldn't help but exclaim in awe, is the Li family not simply digging up their ancestors' graves to amass such wealth? Spending money like this, are they not afraid of going bankrupt? Finally, the grand finale arrived. The host, a woman from the Tiger clan, carefully brought out a jade box. Opening it, inside was a crimson jade pendant, faintly exuding imperial might. The starting bid was 10 million spirit stones. With a resounding clamor, the entire venue erupted. This is the key to the great emperor's tomb. 15 million! Ye Wudao from the Taichu Holy Land directly stood up, his face bearing an expression of absolute certainty. 20 million. The Jiaguang Holy Land followed closely behind. 25 million. The Zhongzhou Imperial Dynasty also refused to be outdone. The price instantly soared past 50 million spirit stones. This was already the accumulated wealth of many holy lands, amassed over hundreds of years. Yet you remained silent, only staring intently at the jade pendant. The pendant seemed strangely familiar to your gaze. After carefully reminiscing for a moment, you suddenly slapped your thigh. You remembered, was this not the betrothal jade that mortal girl and I gambled for and won years ago? Back then, you promised to pluck a star for her, but failed. You then pawned this very jade pendant to her. Who would have thought she would turn it into a tomb key? Your face rarely flustered, reddened slightly. You mused internally, could this be the legendary depth of romance? 60 million. At this moment, Ye Wudao roared out an astronomical price, his face full of triumph as if victory was already in his grasp. 100 million. But the very next second, your nonchalant voice instantly sent the entire venue into an explosion of shock. What? 100 million spirit stones? Everyone has gone mad. 100 million spirit stones? That's enough to sell off the entire Li clan. Ye Wudao, enraged, trembled from head to toe. He pointed at you and roared, "This is a malicious bid." He didn't believe you could actually produce the funds. "Whether I can produce it or not, what concern is it of yours?" You retorted with a cold sneer. Wanbao Tower has yet to utter a word. What right do you have? The manager of Wanbao Tower hastily rushed out to apologize. After all, you were a great emperor. Wanbao Tower, Wanbao Tower. Finally, the jade pendant fell into your hands, but the moment you received it, you suddenly sensed a familiar aura and a clear yet distant voice echoed in your mind. "You damn devil, you've finally arrived." You instantly shuddered. This was truly it. This was no mere treasure vault, but clearly a deadly battlefield. Glancing at the three grandnephews beside you, a sly smile played on your lips. If this is the ancestor's debt, then you shall be the ones to repay it. It is the perfect opportunity to send you all to that so-called empress's tomb for tempering. With that, you waved your hand. Go and dig. No, go and explore. But just as you stepped out of the auction house, with a deafening roar, the heavens and earth changed color. Dozens of terrifying auras instantly descended. Several old monsters of unknown origin directly blocked your path. They had emerged from 100,000 years of seclusion, all for the pursuit of immortality. Having just awakened, you suddenly learned you had but 3 months left to live. The only way to prolong your life was to rely on your clan members to marry and bear children. Thus, to prepare a meeting gift for your future grandnephews, you decided to personally lead a team to participate in the once-a-year grand auction. But just as you stepped out of the auction house, with a thunderous roar, the heavens and earth changed color as dozens of terrifying presences instantly descended. Several old monsters of unknown origin directly blocked your path. "Li Chongsheng, hand over the Hongchen Empress's token, and we shall spare your life." The speaker was a gaunt old man, clearly at the end of his lifespan. All of them? Hearing this, you couldn't help but chuckle. A mere handful of worthless rabble dared to boast before you? Enough meaningless words. With a casual wave of your right hand, you drew a line in the air, and a brilliant golden Dharma seal emerged from the heavens. The next second, that Dharma seal instantly transformed into a colossal primordial mountain. With the might to suppress all heavens, it plunged straight down upon the primordial holy sun, Ye Wudao. Ye Wudao's face turned ashen. He hurriedly opened the fan in his hand, attempting to create a defense, while screaming, "Divine Protective Aura." A deafening crash echoed as the golden seal struck and his protective energy shattered. The divine protective aura, which he had believed impenetrable, instantly tore apart like thin paper. Ye Wudao didn't even have time to let out a scream. His entire being was violently slammed by the golden seal. His fate remained unknown. This scene unfolded far too quickly. The old monsters, whose eyes had been filled with contempt, instantly contracted their pupils and a wave of chilling dread surged in their hearts. You retracted the golden seal, your gaze casually sweeping over the 3 grandnephews behind you. "Today is your trial. Besides the rat hiding in the shadows, the rest are for my grand disciples." Li Ocean stepped forward first, his entire body exuding soaring sword intent. With a resonant clang, the heavy sword in his hand did not open wide, but instead drew a profound trajectory in the void. Black and white chi flowed across the blade. This was the profound truth of yin and yang that Li Ocean had comprehended within the yin-yang creation scripture. Immediately after, he unleashed a single slash, his sword chi like a majestic river, possessing the power to cleave mountains and shatter rocks. The yin-yang sword saint, who had initially worn an expression of disdain, intending to suppress the junior with his veteran experience, instantly changed his demeanor as the 2 swords clashed. With a crisp sound, the yin-yang sword chi he prided himself on was layer by layer disintegrated by Li Ocean's bizarre force. Immediately after, an unparalleled overbearing force backlashed along his sword. The yin-yang sword saint's mouth burst open, and his body retreated 1,000 jang, his face filled with disbelief. You watched, a flicker of appreciation in your eyes before shifting your gaze elsewhere. There, a thick poisonous mist obscured everything, and the myriad poison crone was sneering as she unleashed countless venomous worms aiming to devour Li Go. However, at the center of the mist, a complex array barrier arose. This was the Xuanwu deflection array, stacked from hundreds of array flags and reinforced by a block of dragon-patterned black gold just acquired at auction, making its defense frighteningly potent. No matter how the myriad poison crone urged her venomous worms to gnaw, the array barrier remained unshaken. Moments later, Li Go's cold voice emanated from within the array. "Old hag, have you attacked enough?" The next second, the array shifted, and dozens of lightning pillars suddenly shot out. This was a killing array Li Go had hidden within the defensive formation. The Nine Heavens Thunder Summoning Array. Caught off guard, the myriad poison crone was struck by lightning, turning charred black and screaming miserably. You shook your head, a smile playing at the corner of your lips, thinking, though this young one is as timid as a mouse, his meticulous nature is reassuring. As for the third battlefield, it was the most direct and brutal. That Golden Lion King, a traitor from the Myriad Monster Kingdom, was about to make a show of his power, but Bai Ling directly transformed into her true form. A spectral winged ancient white tiger appeared in the void. The bloodline power from that royal lineage made the Golden Lion King tremble uncontrollably, unable to even muster a thought of resistance. And Li Ergo merely stood by watching. It seemed these youngsters had grown considerably. You then retracted your gaze, your expression gradually turning serious as you slowly turned to look towards an obscure spot in the void. Nothing seemed to be there, yet under your Emperor's perception, a dangerously powerful aura was concealed, the strongest assassin of this ambush. A peak assassin, half a foot into the Great Emperor realm, the Shadow Venerable. You've been watching the show for long enough. Are you still not going to make a move? You calmly spoke. In the very next instant, the shadows twisted and writhed, and a figure, cloaked entirely in black bones, slowly materialized, an inky black dagger clutched in its hand. Li Changsheng, you have grown old. Were you in your prime, I would indeed retreat 3 steps. But now, you are merely clinging to life. How many times can you still unleash your imperial might? The Shadow Venerable's voice rasped, hoarse and grating. His ethereal form seemed to meld with the very laws of heaven and earth. Clinging to life, you say? He chuckled softly, his eyes revealing a profound understanding of the mortal world, a gaze filled with ancient vicissitudes and calm indifference. To kill you, why would I need imperial might? Go ahead and court death. Enraged, the Shadow Venerable's form vanished instantly. When he reappeared, he was already behind our protagonist. The inky black dagger silently thrust towards his back, its speed transcending time itself. Yet the old man merely turned slowly, a divine radiance suddenly flaring in his eyes. In the next instant, 2 beams of light, solid as reality, shot forth from his eyes, striking directly between the Shadow Venerable's brows. The Shadow Venerable, who had been radiating murderous intent moments before, suddenly froze. An indescribable sense of terror instantly seized his mind. To his horror, he discovered that the vital essence and spiritual key within his body were uncontrollably converging towards his abdomen. It was as if a bizarre life law was forcibly crystallizing within his core. Fear overwhelmed him, his soul trembling, as his hands unconsciously clutched his stomach. What demonic art is this? He stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his gaze calmly fixed on the Shadow Venerable. He merely stated, "This old man is simply helping you harmonize the yin and yang energies within your body." Upon hearing these words, the Shadow Venerable was about to retort when another spasm seized his abdomen. Immediately after, he retched violently. This half-step Great Emperor actually knelt in midair, clutching his stomach and dry heaving incessantly. This bizarre sight instantly astonished all those fiercely battling nearby. With just a single gaze, a peerless expert was rendered utterly incapable of combat. What terrifying divine ability is this? His eyes turned cold. Taking another step forward, he declared with an icy tone, "It's not over yet. Shatter." As the word left his lips, the bizarre chi within the Shadow Venerable's body suddenly exploded, directly destroying his Dantian and Chi seat. In the very next instant, the Shadow Venerable plummeted from the sky, crashing heavily onto the ground, utterly lifeless. The entire scene instantly fell into a deafening silence. The cultivators who had been besieging the Li family disciples all turned deathly pale. A single glance had crippled a half-step Great Emperor. This was clearly not the withered chi and blood of an old man on his last legs. "Does anyone else still desire the key of the Red Dust Empress?" he asked, his voice calm and unhurried. Though his voice was not loud, it resounded like a grand bell, echoing deep within everyone's hearts. Suddenly, an unknown voice shrieked in terror, "Run!" The remaining remnants of the Taichu sacred land and the Yin-Yang sect immediately scattered like frightened birds. In the blink of an eye, they had vanished without a trace. Gazing at these dogs mourning their losses, the old man was too lazy to pursue them. Instead, he turned to look at his 3 grandsons, whose faces were filled with reverence, a foxy grin spreading across his own. "Why are you just standing there dumbfounded? Hurry and clear the battlefield. Even the smallest scraps are still worth something. Although our Li family has a grand heritage and great undertakings, we cannot afford to be wasteful." Upon hearing his words, Li Go was the first to react, pouncing forward like a hungry tiger on its prey. Li Ocean and Li Ergo followed closely behind, skillfully collecting the spoils of battle. He then took out the key-like jade pendant that radiated a crimson light, a flicker of nostalgia in his eyes. "Hongchen, oh, Hongchen, what a mess you've left for me this time. Let's go, children." Immediately after his command, the 9-dragon war chariot tore through the void and soared away. This dignified great emperor, who had been in seclusion for 100,000 years in pursuit of immortal life, had only just awakened, only to suddenly learn he had but 3 days left to live. And the only way to extend his lifespan was to rely on his family members marrying and bearing children. At this moment, the nine-dragon war chariot streaked across the void, under his control, transforming into a beam of light that hurtled directly towards Fallen Phoenix Slope, 3,000 li outside the city. Fallen Phoenix Slope, true to its name, was where a true phoenix once fell. This place was perpetually shrouded in a layer of crimson mist. Accompanied by a thunderous roar, the nine-dragon war chariot broke through the crimson mist and slowly descended onto the highest peak of Fallen Phoenix Slope. He stood upon the chariot, hands clasped behind his back, a rare flicker of complex emotion appearing in his aged eyes. Just then, Li Go, holding a compass, spoke with a grave expression. "Old ancestor, what is this mist?" "That is the red dust intent," he calmly explained, retracting his thoughts. "The true Phoenix Empress cultivated the Tao of red dust her entire life. This mist is formed from her Tao charm, which refused to dissipate after her death. For those with love in their hearts, it is poison. For those without, it is but air." As he finished speaking, the corners of his mouth curved into a knowing smile. "For these 3 blockheads of mine, this poison is likely useless." Indeed, Leotian took a deep breath, his brows furrowed in confusion. "Aside from a slight tingle in my nose, I feel nothing." Meanwhile, the naive Bailing transformed back into her human form, nestling on Li Ergo's back, still sleepily rubbing against him. "My lord, such a delightful fragrance fills the air." You swiftly cut short this untimely display of affection. "All of you, regain your composure. We must enter." With these words, you produced a red jade pendant. The moment it appeared, the jade pendant emitted a clear, resonant cry, like that of a phoenix. The pink mist that had enveloped the mountainside seemed to receive a mysterious summons, wildly receding to both sides, revealing a small path strewn with fallen blossoms. Following the path, at its end stood a colossal rose-hued palace. The entire palace appeared to be carved from warm jade, with its sweeping upturned eaves and intricately sculpted beams. 2 colossal red lanterns swayed in the wind before its gates, exuding an indescribable aura of celebration. Above the palace entrance, a grand plaque bore 3 characters, written in the graceful style of a soaring dragon and dancing phoenix: Chao Shen Lu. In the next moment, the very air seemed to congeal. Leah Ocean looked around in bewilderment. "Old ancestor," he questioned, "have we perhaps come to the wrong place? Is this truly an emperor's tomb? This is clearly a brothel from the mortal realm." Li Go meanwhile drew a sharp cold breath and frantically recoiled. "A trap? This is surely a trap. To disguise a tomb as a brothel, inside there must surely lurk a succubus specializing in draining the vital essence of men." Even your ancient face flushed crimson, your brow twitching in irritation. "Hongchen, Hongchen, even in death you grant no one peace." At a single glance, you recognized the characters on the plaque as the personal inscription of Empress Hongchen. This was no mere tomb, but clearly a lingering obsession or a profound waiting that she had left behind. Enough of this nonsense. Having reached the very gates, how could we possibly turn back now? Striving to maintain your composure and restore the majesty of a great emperor, you waved your hand. "Follow this old man in," you commanded. "Let us see what manner of game this young lass truly plays." With these words, you took a decisive step, striding directly onto the small path strewn with fallen blossoms. The moment you stepped through the grand entrance of the palace, the very heavens and earth around you suddenly warped. The desolate Luofengpo vanished in an instant, replaced by a Penglai-like immortal realm where birds sang and flowers bloomed with sweet fragrance. "Welcome to the Hongchen Heart Refining Array." A clear, gentle female voice echoed softly in everyone's ears. This voice was not that of a physical being, but an illusion woven by the array itself, the first trial, the myriad blossoms enchanting the mortal eye. No sooner had the words faded than a strange transformation began. The peach trees that had stood silently around them suddenly twisted and morphed, transforming into countless exquisitely beautiful maidens, each adorned in flimsy silk robes. "Young masters, come, let us play." They either plucked at stringed instruments and sang enchanting melodies, or danced with captivating grace, each figure utterly beguiling. You, with hands clasped behind your back, did not even deign to lift your eyelids. This low-level illusion was to you no more than a tedious shadow puppet show. Now the true amusement lay in observing how your 3 young disciples would contend with this trial. One could only watch as a voluptuous, illusory demoness coiled herself around Leotian, her jade-like hands boldly resting upon his chest. "Oh, my sword cultivator brother, cultivating the sword is such a harsh path. Why not cultivate the path of joyous meditation with this humble maiden instead?" But the very next second, her invitation was met with a clear, piercing sword cry. Li Ocean, his face utterly devoid of expression, slammed the heavy sword in his hand directly into the demoness's face, instantly shattering her illusion and reducing her to a mere peach tree once more. "You were obstructing my view." Li Aotian coldly uttered, "The spatial node here is misaligned. If the sword force is applied at a precise 3-inch angle, this array can be shattered." With those words, he actually began to gesticulate mid-air, completely ignoring the exquisitely beautiful maidens around him, who were frantically casting seductive glances his way. At the same moment, the scene unfolding around Li Go grew even stranger. A group of demonesses had surrounded his colossal golden egg. "Little brother, come out and play with us." Suddenly, the surface of the golden egg spewed forth a torrent of glistening white bones. The demonesses, sprayed full in the face, their beautiful countenances paling, one by one clutched their noses and fled in disarray. Meanwhile, on the other side, Li Erha, riding upon Bailing's back, looked around with a blank stare as an illusory demoness with fox ears approached him. Little brother, tell me, is my tail soft to the touch? Li Erha glanced at her dismissively, then shook his head. Your fur color is impure, and it's split-ended. Moreover, your ears, they're fake, aren't they? Having said that, he buried his head into Bailing's thick fur and took a deep, contented breath. My dearest companion is truly the best, he mused, purely natural and unblemished. A single breath is enough to invigorate the spirit. Bailing roared in cooperation, its heaven-shattering might directly dissolving the fox spirit. In your heart you felt both relief and exasperation. Relief that these juniors truly relied on their own strength, remaining untouched by such allure. Such petty temptations held no sway over their resolve. Yet you felt helpless, realizing that with such peculiar mindsets, if you didn't personally arrange their unions, your lineage might truly face extinction. Enough of this tomfoolery. Impatiently, you waved your sleeve, unleashing a boundless imperial might that surged forth like a tsunami. With a crisp sound, the illusions of beautiful maidens and fragrant peaches shattered, the surrounding spring waters breaking apart like glass, dissolving into glittering motes of light that vanished into thin air. Only then did the true form of the palace finally reveal itself. You now stood within a vast and majestic hall. The hall's design was strikingly austere, save for a single crystal coffin suspended serenely at its very heart. Beneath this crystal sarcophagus, a spirit spring eye ceaselessly poured forth an abundant supply of spiritual energy. You gazed at the crystal coffin, your eyes flickering with a profound emotion, and slowly stepped forward. Your three grandchildren, filled with curiosity, followed suit. Li Erha could not contain his curiosity and asked, Ancestor, is this the coffin of Empress Hongchen? You offered no reply, silently gazing at the figure within the crystal. It was a woman adorned in a resplendent crimson wedding gown. Her eyes were closed, yet her peerless beauty remained undiminished. Even after 10,000 years, the Empress's awe-inspiring aura, a blend of world-shaking power and supreme individuality, still compelled one to avert their gaze. She bore no trace of decay, her life force unbelievably remained unbroken. It was as if she merely slept a profound millennia-long sleep. And upon her chest, where her hands were gently clasped, lay the other half of a crimson jade pendant. You slowly produced your own half of the pendant, gently placing it upon the other. With a soft click, the two halves merged seamlessly. The moment the jade pendant became whole, the entire grand hall was abruptly bathed in a dazzling crimson glow. The next instant, the crystal coffin slowly drifted open. A terrifying imperial pressure erupted, instantly forcing Li Aoshan and his two companions to prostrate themselves, utterly unable to move. A voice echoed, "You have come." A long sigh suddenly resonated through the grand hall as the woman within the coffin slowly opened her eyes. This formidable great emperor who had secluded himself for 10,000 years in pursuit of true immortality, now having just reawakened, was suddenly informed he had but 3 days left to live, and the sole method to extend your life lay in your clan members marrying and producing descendants. To prepare for the arrival of your future grandnephews, you personally led an expedition to excavate the tomb left behind by Empress Hongchen before her ascension. Unexpectedly, in the very next second, the crystal coffin slowly opened. A terrifying pressure instantly forced Li Aoshan and his companions to prostrate themselves, utterly immobilized. You have come. A sigh echoed through the grand hall as the woman within the coffin slowly opened her eyes. Hongchen, you uttered calmly, it has been a long time. A hint of tenderness, imperceptible even to yourself, laced your words. Hongchen replied, Indeed, you too know it has been a long time. The Empress slowly sat upright, a melancholic yet chillingly beautiful smile gracing her lips. You left me to wait within this coffin for 10,000 years. Did you not promise to pluck the stars from the heavens for me? Where are they now? Upon hearing this, your aged face flushed crimson, and you self-consciously rubbed your nose. The sight of this nearly made the eyes of the three Laotians, still prostrate on the ground, bulge from their sockets. Could this truly be the peerless Empress of 10 millennia past, and she was the ancestor's beloved confidant? Had he simply forgotten about her? Empress Hongchen, so furious she could only laugh, slowly stepped out of the crystal coffin. Li Changsheng, you are still as exasperating as ever, but it seems you have yet to take that final decisive step. You met her gaze unflinchingly. Even I, a great emperor, cannot escape the ceaseless erosion of time. Yet you, on the other hand, used the Hongchen heaven-sealing art to seal yourself within this place. Was it perchance to await an apology? What use have I for your apology? Empress Hongchen's eyes suddenly turned glacial as she pointed unexpectedly at the three figures still prostrate behind you. Who are they? You unconsciously blurted out, these are my grandnephews. Grandnephews? Empress Hongchen froze in stunned disbelief, then instantly her aura erupted with murderous intent. You dared to bear children with another behind my back, and an entire brood at that. With a resounding boom, the temperature within the grand hall plummeted to an absolute chill. Cold sweat instantly drenched you. A misunderstanding. These are truly the descendants of an adopted son I took in, I swear. Empress Hongchen regarded you with suspicion. You immediately raised your hand, swearing a solemn oath. My words are as true as tempered gold. Should I speak a single falsehood, may the five elements' divine thunder strike me down. No sooner had the words left your lips than a deafening thunderclap boomed from beyond the hall. The air instantly became thick with an unbearable awkwardness. Empress Hongchen let out a chilling laugh. It appears even the heavens themselves do not believe you. With a sweeping wave of her sleeve, restoring her imperial dignity, she declared, Since you have come, I shall no longer feign composure. This remnant soul of mine cannot endure for much longer. Legacies, imperial armaments, elixirs, I can bestow them all upon you, but I have one condition. Hearing this, you let out a sigh of relief. Speak, what is this condition? Hongchen Nudi then spoke, each word weighted with intent. I desire you to immediately perform the marriage ceremony with me. Otherwise I shall detonate this very tomb, and we shall perish together, into endless oblivion. No sooner had she uttered these words than you were utterly petrified. The three grandchildren on the ground were even more flabbergasted. Confronted by this unexpected, forced betrothal, and gazing upon the woman who had borne his spirit for 100,000 years, a maelstrom of emotions churned within your heart. After a pregnant silence, you suddenly erupted in laughter. Very well, you declared, is it not merely a marriage ceremony? This old master agrees. With those words, you stepped forward, your hand firmly seizing Hongchen Nudi's, and with a domineering air declared, how could my Li Changsheng's grand wedding possibly be held so perfunctorily within this dilapidated tomb? Come, let us go forth. I shall make this proclamation to the 9 heavens and 10 domains. She, Feng Nudi, is my woman, and I, Li Changsheng, shall bestow upon her a wedding that reverberates through the very cosmos. Not long after, high above Luofeng Slope, the towering pink skeletal warship, which had previously crowned the mountain peak, began to rapidly shrink, finally settling into the palm of a red-robed woman. Hongchen Nudi, her head crowned with a phoenix diadem and draped in ceremonial robes, exuded a terrifying boundless majesty. Yet beside her you, who had just intimidated countless heroes with a mere glance, now wore an utterly docile expression. Indeed it was you, with hands clasped behind your back. You strove to maintain the majestic aura of a great emperor, yet the rigid corners of your mouth and the subtle glint in your eyes betrayed the air of one utterly enthralled. As for Leo Ocean and the other two, they resembled 3 freshly hatched ducklings, cowering, not daring to draw a deep breath. For in the distance stood Hongchen Nudi herself. The numerous potentates who had initially gathered, intending to witness a mere spectacle, found their eyes nearly bulging from their sockets at the sight. Then, under the utterly astonished gazes of all cultivators across the entire Donghua, you led Hongchen Nudi by the hand, ascending the 9-dragon war chariot. Standing proudly atop a dragon's head, you drew a deep breath, mobilizing your boundless imperial power. Your voice, imbued with profound power, boomed across the entirety of Donghua. Listen well, you young ones. Today is an auspicious day. This emperor came to Luofeng Slope not merely to unearth an imperial armament, but also to conveniently bring back the Hongchen Nudi of 100,000 years past. After much deliberation, we two have decided to rekindle our ancient fated connection and become Dao companions. 3 days hence, the Li Changsheng clan shall host a grand wedding. The 9 heavens and 10 domains, along with all myriad races, are summoned to offer their congratulations. As for any who fail to attend or dare to arrive empty-handed, at this juncture you deliberately paused, a dramatic silence hanging in the air. Just then, Hongchen Nudi, standing beside you, let out a timely cold snort. Her terrifying aura, capable of shattering the heavens and obliterating palaces, immediately reverberated for 10,000 li through the azure clouds. You immediately seized the opportunity, borrowing her formidable might to further declare. Then they shall be seen as disrespecting this emperor's wife, and shall bear the full weight of the consequences themselves. With a resounding boom that stirred 1,000 waves, the entire Donghua erupted into absolute pandemonium. He dug up a tomb only to unearth a great empress as his wife? What manner of divine maneuver is this? Yet at this very moment, the atmosphere aboard the 9-dragon war chariot had grown somewhat peculiar. Hongchen Nudi sat gracefully upon a grand armchair, her exquisite eyes scrutinizing the 3 descendants before her. Li Ocean and the other 2 knelt upon the deck, cold sweat pouring down their faces. This was a living legend, more formidable and fierce than even their own venerable ancestor. Lear Cap, stiff-necked with trepidation, tentatively called out, "That great-grandmother!" Hearing this, Hongchen Nudi's phoenix eyes narrowed, and a chilling aura immediately permeated the air. Who are you addressing? Does this empress appear so ancient? Lear Cap immediately cowered, terror-stricken, even the fur of the Balin tiger in his arms bristling. Sensing his blunder, you frantically gestured from the side, urging, "Call her ancestor or immortal sister, immortal sister." The 3 instantly grasped your intent. In unison they cried out. Only then did Hongchen Nudi nod with satisfaction, drawing 3 items from her sleeve. For our first meeting, she drawled, "Take these few trifles to amuse yourselves." With a resounding clatter and a brilliant flash, 3 radiant treasures, each pulsing with magnificent light, landed heavily upon the chariot's deck. Li Ocean casually picked up a fragmented sword. The moment his hand closed around it, a surge of incredibly sharp sword intent immediately assailed his sea of consciousness. This was a fragment of the legendary Xianxia sword, and within it resided the supreme true meaning of the sword Dao. Next, Li Go picked up a mundane gray stone. As soon as his spiritual sense swept over it, his entire body jolted upright in astonishment. A primordial chaos sky-mending stone. With this, my Xuanwu can even withstand a blow from a true immortal. Meanwhile, Lear Cap hugged a brilliantly radiant pearl, drooling uncontrollably. The myriad beast spirit pearl. Wearing it, one can not only understand the voices of all beasts, but also suppress their very bloodlines. These are far too precious. The very next second, the 3, clutching their newfound treasures, were moved to tears. And once more, in unison, they cried out, "Thank you, immortal sister. Immortal sister, may you live for 10,000 years." You, watching from the side, felt your eyelid twitch uncontrollably. His heart bled. This prodigal son carelessly bestowed even treasures he coveted upon these 3 worthless youngsters. At the same time, within the immortal Li clan, Patriarch Li Jiantian paced anxiously in the ancestral hall, accompanied by a group of elders. The old ancestor sent word. He wishes to hold a grand wedding. What kind of matter is this? Grand Elder Li Tong wore a distressed expression, his hands hanging limply. The old ancestor is already of such an age. Furthermore, we just celebrated the birthday of a divine being, and now the old ancestor wishes to take a wife. The generational hierarchy will be utterly chaotic. The second elder's voice also trembled. That is the legendary god of carnage. What if one day the husband and wife quarrel? Will our entire clan be torn asunder because of it? Just as everyone was discussing in an uproar, a dragon's roar suddenly echoed from the heavens. The Julong Jianzhou tore through the void and descended, a colossal shadow immediately engulfing the entire Li clan's divine island. Li Zhantian dared not delay, hastily leading all clan members and disciples to kneel. He led the Hongchen Empress down from the sky like a pair of immortal beings. Seeing that this crowd lacked discernment and remained frozen, he immediately cast a glance and signaled, "Why are you standing there stunned?" "Greet her!" Li Zhantian stiffly called out, his voice still trembling slightly. The Hongchen Empress nodded slightly, her gaze sweeping across everyone in the Li clan, finally settling on several spiritual mountains that had long been desolate. "This clan seems rather dilapidated," she mused. Li Zhantian's face instantly flushed crimson. Though the Li clan claimed to be an imperial clan, it had after all declined for 100,000 years. Now it truly had little to show for itself. "Never mind," she dismissed. Unexpectedly, the Hongchen Empress simply raised her hand and gently waved. The Hongzhenju she had brought suddenly rose, hovering above the Li clan's divine island. The next second, its grand gates opened and countless spirit veins like colossal dragons flew out, madly burrowing into the Li clan's earth. Following this, countless divine metals, rare medicinal pills, and secret cultivation techniques rained down. In an instant, they completely filled the Li clan's main square. "Consider these, Adari," the Hongchen Empress stated, her tone utterly calm. "Furthermore, I possess 3 divine palaces in the outer cosmos. Later, Zhantian can go and take them over." As her words fell, the Li clan immediately erupted into a frenzy. Chaotic generational hierarchy, legendary gods of carnage, in the face of such overwhelming power, all these concerns were but fleeting clouds. The next morning, the protagonist's waist felt as if it would break as he struggled to sit up from his bed. 100,000 years of accumulated essence had been completely drained in a single night. Just then a voice, languid yet clear, echoed in his ear. "Husband, are you awake?" He stiffened completely. He mechanically turned his head, only to see the Hongchen Empress sitting before a dressing table. She wore a flowing red immortal phoenix gown, her usual domineering aura diminished, replaced by the gentle demeanor of a wife. Awake. Awake indeed. He forced a smile. He tried to straighten his back. "My lady must have toiled greatly last night," the Hongchen Empress said, her smile enigmatic as she cast him a glance, then slowly rose and walked towards him. Then she extended a slender jade-like finger and gently tapped him. With a resonant thrum, a surge of primordial essence immediately flowed from between her brows into his dried-up dantian. Yet the Hongchen Empress acted as if she had merely performed an insignificant task. She nonchalantly remarked, "Though your qi and blood have recovered, your foundation was damaged. Last night I used my life-bound Hongchen qi to cleanse your meridians, helping you restore your peak aura." Hearing these words, his heart immediately warmed. He thought to himself, though this Empress is domineering, her treatment of me is utterly flawless. Detecting Host and Hongchen Empress have completed the Grand Life Union. Hidden achievement unlocked. Softness conquers strength. Calculating rewards. Awarded 3,000 years of lifespan, special physique. Innate pure Yang Dao body and the 10,000 Immortals homage formation diagram. Hearing the system's announcement, he was on the verge of tears. The innate pure Yang body. "System, you finally delivered on this. Tonight, this old man can finally reclaim his former glory." He then seized the Hongchen Empress's hand, looking at her with a sincere expression. "Thank you, my lady." The corner of the Hongchen Empress's mouth curved slightly upwards, but she quickly suppressed it, instantly resuming her aloof and arrogant demeanor. She then urged him to quickly change, for today was the day of their grand wedding. "It is said that the ignorant insects outside are already clamoring to witness your downfall." Upon hearing this, a cold glint flashed within your eyes. "If they wish to witness a spectacle, then let them remain as part of it. The dignified great emperor you had cultivated in seclusion for 100,000 years, solely in pursuit of eternal life. Little did you expect that upon your recent awakening, the peerless empress would arrive at your doorstep, forcing a marriage. Today is your wedding day, and countless powerful experts have gathered, eagerly anticipating a grand spectacle." At this moment, the Li clan's divine island was bustling with unprecedented activity. Countless streams of light streaked in from across the entire eastern wilderness. Although many harbored private reservations about your feigned death and subsequent marriage to the Empress, outwardly, none dared to show any disrespect. At this moment, Li Ochen, Li Go, and Li Erha stood before the mountain gate receiving the guests. As they spoke, a sudden rumble of thunder echoed in the distance. The once clear sky instantly turned gloomy, as from the east 9 colossal flood dragons were seen slowly pulling a gigantic bronze coffin into view. That bronze coffin was covered in ancient, weathered marks, exuding a dense and profoundly ominous aura of death. The gathered guests were all utterly aghast, recognizing it as the soul-bearing bell, a fearsome imitation imperial armament. The Taichu Holy Land bringing forth such an item clearly signified their intent to be irreconcilable enemies with the Li clan. Following this, from the west, the yin-yang dual qi flowed, transforming into a colossal black and white scroll painting that obscured the sky and covered the earth. It was none other than the yin-yang sect's most treasured artifact, the yin-yang life-death diagram. A thunderous roar then reverberated through the heavens, revealing the Taichu Holy Lord clad in his purple-gold battle armor, wielding the slaying halberd, standing majestically atop the bronze coffin. Behind him stood the yin-yang sect master, the rebellious Lion King of the 10,000 Monster Nation, and several other ancient, formidable experts, their auras noticeably weakened. The Taichu Holy Lord's voice was chilling. You lied, claiming the Hongshan Empress has been resurrected. In truth, her life lamp has long been extinguished. Today we are here to expose your true face and send you to your final rest. The gathered guests immediately erupted into a commotion, many speculating that the Empress was indeed an impostor. After all, how could one truly revive after being dead for 100,000 years? But just as the tension grew palpable, a clear melodious bell chimed from deep within the Li clan's ancestral hall. Following this, flowers rained down from the heavens, lotuses bloomed in the void, and the Grand Tao itself resonated. A magnificent golden path unfurled from the Li clan's main hall, stretching directly toward the sky. In the next moment, you emerged, hand in hand with the Hongshan Empress, gracefully stepping along the golden path. The Hongshan Empress spoke. Taichu Jr., who do you claim is an impostor? Her red lips parted. Her voice, though not loud, was like a chilling winter storm, freezing everything for tens of thousands of miles. With a sudden crack, the bronze coffin beneath the Taichu Holy Lord's feet instantly fractured, a deep fissure appearing with her words alone. Immediately, the entire assembly fell into a stunned silence. Such a power, where words became reality, capable of shattering a quasi-imperial armament with a single utterance, who but a true great emperor could possess such might? The Taichu Holy Lord's face instantly turned ashen, and the slaying halberd in his hand trembled uncontrollably. Impossible! This must be an illusion. Everyone, do not be swayed. You sighed softly, then stepped forward, shielding the Hongshan Empress. You declared, these mere minions, allow me to handle them. It will also be a convenient opportunity for all beneath the heavens to witness whether you have truly aged. The Yin-Yang sect master roared in response, loudly proclaiming that they possessed 8 quasi-emperors. Furthermore, with an imperial armament suppressing our formation, what will you possibly use to fight us? You merely sneered, then slowly raised your right hand. Around the Li clan's divine island, 9,981 pillars of light suddenly soared, piercing the very heavens, and at the heart of this grand formation, an ordinary red brick appeared in your hand. Today this old man shall impart a profound lesson unto you all. As these words left your lips, you instantly materialized before the Taichu Holy Lord. The red brick in your hand, without the slightest ceremony, smashed down. With a thunderous crash, the Taichu Holy Lord, along with his soul-bearing bell, was instantly flattened from the sky into the earth, forming a chasm so deep its bottom could not be seen. You stood proudly in the air, the red brick still in your hand, a single figure and a simple brick confronting 8 quasi-emperors. Your Bachi aura soared to the heavens, shaking all of existence. Within the colossal crater, the Taichu Holy Lord lay broken and defeated, his formidable purple-gold battle armor, once possessing astonishing defensive power, now utterly shattered. Beside the massive pit, you stood with your hands clasped behind your back, your gaze sweeping over the remaining 7 quasi-emperors. Esteemed guests, just now, fellow Taoist Taichu claimed this old man was merely feigning power. My hands were momentarily itching for a challenge, so I engaged him in a brief exchange. It seems fellow Taoist Taichu has comprehended this old man's principle quite profoundly, so deeply moved, in fact, that he cannot rise from the ground. Now, are there any other fellow Taoists who wish to hear this old man expound further upon his principles? At this, the Yin-Yang sect master's face turned so grim it seemed water might drip from it. He steeled his resolve, declaring that your previous strike must have employed a forbidden technique, one that heavily consumed your vital essence. At this moment, you are merely feigning strength, hoping to scare us away. Beside him, an ancient monster from a forbidden life zone insidiously chimed in, asserting that if the Hongshan Empress was truly alive, then her very essence would be the greatest elixir for prolonging life. At the mention of prolonging life, a glint of avarice instantly flashed in the eyes of the other ancient monsters. For them whose lifespans were nearing their end, mere survival now outweighed all else. The treacherous Golden Lion King, who had betrayed the 10,000 Monster Nation, roared, leading the charge. His sonic waves transformed into colossal golden surges, carrying countless whistling wind blades that churned and bore down upon you. Next, the Yin-Yang sect master formed a set of hand seals, and the black and white formation diagram above his head rumbled as it descended, evolving into a colossal yin-yang grinding mill, intent on pulverizing you into dust. The remaining 5 ancient experts also unleashed their life-bound magical artifacts, one after another. In an instant, the void itself shattered, the fundamental laws of the cosmos fell into disarray, and a cataclysmic, world-destroying energy surged, enveloping only you. Empress Hongshan's phoenix eyes turned cold, and just as she prepared to strike, your voice resonated from the heart of the swirling energy storm. Wait, if I cannot even deal with these as insignificant foes, how could I possibly face you in bed tonight? No sooner had the words left your lips, a surge of supremely firm and pure yang golden vital energy, like a volcanic eruption, shot straight into the heavens, instantly dispelling the oppressive dark clouds. With a resounding boom, you took a single step, your entire body transforming, skin taking on a translucent, pale golden hue akin to glazed jade. This was the 8 pure yang Dao body, a gift from the system, rendering you impervious to all evil, unbreakable by all techniques, your physical body achieving a state of sainthood. Facing the heaven shrouding, earth covering yin-yang diagram above, you unleash no divine ability, relying solely on the raw might of your physical body to deliver a single devastating punch. With a deafening crash, the quasi-emperor artifact, a treasure passed down for tens of thousands of years, let out a mournful shriek under this single punch, then shattered into countless specks of light scattering across the heavens. The yin-yang sect master, his life-bound artifact damage, spat out fresh blood wildly, asking in terrified disbelief, how can your vital energy be so boundless? You completely ignored his astonishment, your figure moving like a phantom, instantly appearing before that colossal golden lion king. As it roared, its mouth wide open like a blood-filled basin, you raised your hand and directly seized its throat. Then, with a resounding crack, your arm exerted tremendous force, and the mountain-sized golden lion king was lifted effortlessly by your single hand, as if it were a mere chick. You like to roar so much, don't you? Then become this old man's hammer. With that, you swung the massive lion king, fiercely smashing it into the group of old monsters from the Forbidden Zone who were charging toward you. The various artifacts unleashed by those old monsters were wildly battered by this thick-skinned, corpulent lion. The golden lion king, meanwhile, let out a series of tragic, pained wails. It felt as if it wasn't engaged in battle, but rather being wielded as a mere weapon. The sight was utterly brutal. The guests below watched in stunned silence, their mouths agape, jaws nearly hitting the ground. Then, as if flinging a mere sandbag, you powerfully hurled the golden lion king away. It crashed straight into the yin-yang sect master, who was still wildly spitting blood. With a thunderous impact, the two figures collided violently in mid-air, instantly transforming into a plummeting meteor, crashing heavily into the distant lands. At this moment, only the 5 old monsters from the Life Forbidden Zone remained at the center of the devastated battlefield. Though they appeared utterly wretched, a more fanatical glint sparked in their eyes. The weakened elder leading them roared, "Form the array. Deploy the immortal slaying poison array." Instantly, the 5 quickly took their positions, simultaneously opening their mouths to spew forth a mouthful of primal black blood. With a chilling hum, the void trembled, and an ink-black grand array instantly took shape. Following this, countless of poisonic ki surged from within the formation, so potent that even the surrounding space was corroded into swirling black holes. The weakened elder's face contorted into a triumphant, malevolent grin. This was the very corpse poison they had refined within the Forbidden Zone for tens of thousands of years. Even a great emperor, if tainted by this poison, would rot away, their flesh dissolving into putrid water, their very essence turning to mist. Yet, not only did you show no intention of dodging, but you merely opened your mouth and spewed forth a blinding golden flame. That was the Grand Sun True Flame, the innate divine ability of the innate pure Yang Dao body itself. Following this, the golden flame coalesced into a roaring fire dragon, charging headlong into the churning mass of black poisonous ki. The next instant, like boiling oil poured onto snow, the corpse poison, said to be capable of corroding even great emperors, was utterly incinerated before the Grand Sun True Flame in less than a single breath. The fire dragon, its power still undiminished, roared as it lunged toward the 5 old monsters. Tragic shrieks immediately echoed throughout the sky and clouds, a symphony of their demise. A moment later, as the flames dissipated, only 5 primal energy cores and several spatial rings remained suspended in the air. Those 5 quasi-emperors who had dominated their era had utterly vanished into thin air. You calmly collected the spoils of battle into your spatial ring, then surveyed your surroundings, your gaze finally settling upon the disciples of the primordial Holy Land and the Yin-Yang sect who had not yet managed to flee. "Go back," you commanded, your voice carrying with absolute authority, "and tell those old venerables who still cling to life within your sect." Your voice, though calm, resonated like thunder in each person's ear. On this day of great joy, this old man does not wish to engage in a great slaughter. Begone, that single word begone, was an absolute, undeniable command. The cultivators, who had long since been scared out of their wits, instantly felt as if they had received a great pardon, frantically scrambling to flee from the Li clan's divine island. At this moment, you turned to face Empress Hongshen, your previously murderous expression instantly transforming into one of fawning flattery. "My lady," you purred, "they have all been chased away. Shall we continue with our wedding rituals?" Empress Hongshen nodded gently, a faint smile gracing her lips. "Husband, please." That single address of husband was enough to make your very bones feel soft with delight. Very well, you mused, indulging in your own thoughts. Then, with a hearty laugh, you led Empress Hongchen by the hand, past the adoring gazes of the Li family disciples, into the grand wedding hall. Ding, the system detected the host's completion of a world-shaking grand wedding. Congratulations. You have received 5,000 years of lifespan, a golden dragon of family chi luck, an enlightenment tea tree, and a mysterious item, a pill of regret. As the system's announcement echoed in your mind, you observed the respectful gazes of the guests within the wedding hall. Then, turning to your peerlessly beautiful wife, the Empress by your side, you felt that your life had truly ascended to its absolute pinnacle. Yet, just as you prepared to enter the bridal chamber ready to embark on a blissful life unfettered by cultivation, Grand Elder Litung suddenly rushed in, his face drained of color, clutching a sound transmission talisman. "Old ancestor," you questioned impatiently, "what troubles have arisen this time?" With a pained expression, the elder replied, "It's not the sky collapsing, old ancestor, but urgent news has arrived from the southern region. Third young master Lier Hao, he seems to have caused quite a predicament." You, a majestic great emperor having cultivated in seclusion for 100,000 years in pursuit of immortality, had just awakened only to be met by a peerless empress at your very doorstep, intent on a forced marriage. But just as you prepared to enter the bridal chamber, ready to embrace a life of bliss, unburdened by cultivation, Grand Elder Li Tong suddenly appeared, his face stark white with urgency. Old ancestor, third young master Lier Hao seems to have once again stirred up a hornet's nest. Caused trouble, you repeated, momentarily stunned. Hadn't that little rascal just managed to bring that wild tigress under control? The trouble began when, on his return journey, he passed through Hundred Flowers Valley. It is said he happened upon their saintess while she was bathing. And then he spied upon her, the elder continued. Your eyes widened, yet a flicker of secret amusement, perhaps even delight, crossed your features. You secretly mused this unrefined nephew of mine has, for once, shown a glimmer of understanding. No, old ancestor, not quite, Li Tong interjected, his expression turning stranger. Combined with previous line, he did not merely spy. Instead, he brazenly barged in and captured the divine beast that the saintess cultivated. That 9-colored peacock was plucked entirely bald by him, and he loudly proclaimed he intended to fashion something called a feather duster for his wife from its plumage. Ah, so that's what transpired, you exclaimed, a tremor of fury in your voice. Now the mistress of Hundred Flowers Valley has arrived at our doorstep, leading a formidable retinue of enraged cultivators, all brandishing blades, demanding an immediate explanation from the Li family. You drew a deep, ragged breath, your chest constricting with profound indignation. What grave misdeeds has the Li family committed, you muttered, to spawn such an eccentric lineage? Enough, enough, you declared, angrily rolling up your sleeves, lamenting your nephew's utter uselessness. You cast a fleeting glance at the bridal chamber. My beloved wife, please rest for now. This husband shall go break that scoundrel's legs, then return to attend to you. Meanwhile, within the Hundred Flowers Valley of the southern region, a renowned sect exclusively for female cultivators, this sacred ground was originally a forbidden sanctuary for all men. Yet, this very night, its once vibrant sea of flowers lay devastated. Leafy family brat, you have pushed your insolence too far. Suddenly, a thunderous roar, seething with righteous fury and chilling murderous intent, reverberated across the very heavens. High in the air, hundreds of female cultivators, adorned in robes of myriad blossoms, coalesced into the fearsome myriad flowers' withering array. Countless petals transmuted into razor-sharp flying swords, hurtling like a tempest towards the heart of the formidable array. At its very core, Lier Hao, mounted upon his white tiger, which had now fully recovered its battle-ready state, clutched tightly a fistful of dazzling multicolored bird feathers emanating a faint, divine radiance. While frantically directing his white tiger to evade the onslaught, he indignantly roared, Hey, old hag, are you capable of any reason? I have told you countless times. I did not spy upon your disciple while she bathed. Moreover, what harm is there in plucking a mere few feathers? That creature possesses such an abundance of plumage. Losing a handful will not render it bald. Must you all be so utterly petty? The array master, Hundred Flowers Valley mistress Hua Wuli, was so incensed she spat a mouthful of old blood, slamming her dragon-headed staff onto the earth. Shameless wretch, you not only brazenly trespassed into our sacred halls, but you violently plucked the feathers of our sect-protecting divine beast. Those were the life-bound feathers of a 9-colored peacock that had cultivated for 3,000 years. And you still dare dismiss them as just a few feathers? With her single furious command, the celestial rain of flowers above instantly turned a chilling crimson. Bai Ling, despite being a pampered imperial demonic beast of considerable power, was now being battered so mercilessly that she cried out in abject misery. Husband, I can endure no longer. Should we perhaps yield? Lier Hao's countenance remained resolute as he clutched the precious bundle of feathers tightly to his chest. This, he declared, is the 9-colored feather duster I crafted for you, a precious part of your dowry. It cannot fall. These feathers cannot be lost. As the grand array tightened its grasp, its withering power, potent enough to utterly slay a saint, was poised to descend. Lier Hao and Bai Ling would surely perish. In this dire moment, hanging by a thread with a thunderous boom, the very sky above suddenly rent open, revealing a colossal rift. A colossal golden hand, vast enough to blot out the heavens and blanket the earth, descended with overwhelming force. The very next second, with a deafening crack, the myriad flowers' withering array, powerful enough to ensnare and slay saints, instantly shattered into dust beneath that titanic golden palm. All the petal-flying swords disintegrated into mere ash. Hua Wuli, utterly terrified, recoiled dozens of steps from the immense backlash. In that same instant, your majestic figure materialized, hands clasped behind your back, standing serenely atop the clouds. Hundred Flowers Valley Mistress, your authority is quite formidable. Indeed, you declared with a dangerous glint in your eyes. Though this old ancestor's grandson may be a worthless scoundrel, it is most certainly not for outsiders to chastise or assault him. Hua Wuli, upon recognizing you as Emperor Chengsheng, instantly blanched. The dragon-headed staff in her grip nearly slipped. Suppressing her profound terror, she bowed respectfully, yet a lingering trace of absolute dread remained visible in her eyes. Great Emperor, please forgive our insolence, but your esteemed descendants' actions were truly outrageous. He brazenly intruded upon our saintess's bathing chambers and severely injured our clan-protecting divine beast. If we do not seek retribution for this, how can Baihua Valley ever hold its head high again? Hearing this, your face darkened. You looked down at Lier Ha, who was still below. What exactly happened? Did you truly spy on someone bathing? It's a grave injustice, old ancestor, Liera cried out, raising a handful of peacock feathers, tears welling in his eyes. I was just passing through Baihua Valley and saw that peacock with such beautiful tail feathers. I thought Linger would surely love them, so I merely borrowed a few. Who could have known that Saintess was soaking in the pond right next to it? I swear, old ancestor, at that moment, my eyes only saw the peacock. That Saintess wasn't even half as beautiful as our family's Linger. The Baihua Valley Saintess, wrapped in a thick robe beside them, was still seething with rage. Upon hearing these words, she was so incensed she nearly fainted. You, however, were left speechless after hearing his explanation. Though you had cursed Liurha 1,000 times in your heart, your innate protectiveness for your own kin flared up fiercely in front of outsiders. Enough, you declared, flicking your sleeve. This old man now understands the situation. While this young man may indeed be conceptually challenged, his transgressions are not worthy of death, you continued. You then produced a jade vial from your robes. This is a 9 revolutions life jade elixir, along with a vial of 10,000 spirit milk. Feed these to that peacock. Within 3 days, its feathers will regrow. Furthermore, it will even help its bloodline evolve. As for disturbing your esteemed sect, Saintess? You paused, then tossed out an ancient tome. This is an emperor-grade yin attribute cultivation technique. 100 flowers in chaotic bloom. Consider it compensation for your spiritual distress. Huawuli hastily caught the 2 items. Her divine sense swept over them, and her breath immediately hitched. An emperor-grade cultivation technique and a divine pill that helps a divine beast evolve? This wasn't compensation. This was practically burying Baihua Valley alive with overwhelming treasures. Her sky-high rage instantly vanished into thin air, replaced by an intoxicating sense of ecstasy, as if being insulted by such an immensely powerful benefactor was a privilege. This is far too precious. Huawuli swallowed hard, her attitude instantly shifting a full 180 degrees. Actually, it was all just a misunderstanding. Your esteemed descendant was merely being naive and romantic, trying to please his beloved wife. This is true devotion. The surrounding Baihua Valley disciples exchanged bewildered glances. Just moments ago, they were demanding to tear him into 10,000 pieces, and now it was true devotion? Indeed, it seemed wealth could sway even devils and deities. Since it's a misunderstanding, then this matter is settled. Too lazy to waste any more words on them, you waved your massive hand, effortlessly scooping up Li Erha and Bai Ling into the air as if they were mere chicks. Wait, old ancestor. Li Erha struggled in midair. I haven't finished with the peacock feathers yet. There's still 1 crest feather on that peacock's head. Silence, giving him a resounding slap to the back of his head. Still spouting nonsense? After 2 nights of intense cultivation and with the system's aid, your cultivation had completely stabilized. You could even vaguely feel yourself approaching the threshold of the immortal gate of the mortal world. Now this is living. You stretched leisurely, about to go check if your descendants were slacking off. Suddenly the system's notification resounded in your mind once more. Urgent mission activated. The host's soaring family destiny has attracted the attention of certain powers in the upper realm. Mission objective: the 4th generation descendant is about to be born. Host is requested to prepare to welcome the advent of an innate peak-level human and repel the usurpers from the upper realm. Mission reward: unlock the main family ascension path and unlock the inter-realm teleportation gate. Hearing this, you paused, a sharp light flashing in your eyes. Upper realm usurpers. Heh. It seems this eastern barrens can no longer contain me. You then raised your head, your gaze piercing through the 9 heavens and 10 lands, as if seeing a far grander world beyond. You wish to play a game? Then I shall play a grand game with all of you. Issue my decree. The entire clan shall assemble. Prepare for battle. The great emperor, who had spent a magnificent 100,000 years in seclusion solely pursuing immortality, had just awakened, only to find himself coveted by the forces of the upper realm. At this moment, 10 months had passed since the great battle that shook the eastern barrens. In these 10 months, the great sacred lands all closed their gates, accepting no visitors. Even the forbidden zones of life, which were originally stirring, uniformly chose to feign death. Yet the atmosphere within the Li Changsheng clan grew increasingly tense, even more severe than when they faced the 8 quasi-emperors. All because the divine child Fei Ling Qingshui was about to give birth. This was the first direct descendant of the 4th generation to be born in the Li clan in 10,000 years. That day, outside the birthing chamber of Wenjian Pavilion, spiritual energy soared to the heavens. Anyone unaware might have thought a peerless fiend was imprisoned within. You led the Hongshan Empress to witness the spectacle, but upon arriving and seeing the scene before you, she nearly died of exasperation. Thousands of sharp swords were plunged around the birthing chamber, their tips uniformly pointing inward, aimed directly at the birthing chamber's entrance. Faint thunder rumbled in the void, clearly indicating that a top-tier killing formation had been activated. At the center of the formation, the soon-to-be father Liaoshan held a heavy sword, his expression as cold as ice. He stared intently at the entrance of the birthing chamber. The Hongshan Empress's phoenix eyes widened. Even with her vast knowledge, she had never witnessed such a sight. She couldn't help but exclaim in astonishment, "Is this giving birth or assassinating a sovereign?" Feeling your blood pressure surge, you no longer cared for composure. Charge! With a powerful kick, you struck the formation's core eye of the myriad swords, returning to one formation. A massive explosion echoed, and the formation twisted and shifted. Li Aoshin abruptly turned his head, his killing intent surging. But upon seeing it was you, he withdrew his aura, though his expression remained stern as he urged you to quickly retreat to a safe area. Without a word, you flicked Li Aoshin's forehead. Your wife is giving birth inside. What is the meaning of you setting up a myriad sword Zhuxian formation outside? Li Aoshan clutched his forehead, explaining with a look of injustice. According to his observations over the past 10 months, each time the child stirred in the womb, it was accompanied by spiritual power and sword chi. Clearly, this was a peerless sword embryo. He worried that the child might not be able to control the sword chi within its body, thus harming Qingshui, or that it would want to fly off on a sword to roam the Jianghu immediately after birth. Hence, he had set up this formation so that the moment the child was born, he could suppress it with his sword intent, making it understand who its father was. Upon hearing this, you rolled your eyes. The Hongshan Empress and the surrounding elders who had rushed over also exchanged astonished glances. You couldn't help but roar, suppress your own head? That's a newborn baby. It doesn't even know how to crawl, let alone fly on a sword. Unexpectedly, Li Aoshan quietly retorted that he could fly on a sword by the age of 3. At this moment, you felt an overwhelming sense of exhaustion, even beginning to wonder if this damned fatherly obsession was truly etched into the very bones of the Li clan. Then, you flicked your sleeve, dispelling the entire sword formation. From your system space, you retrieved a pile of items completely unfitting for the current setting. Pink rattles, soft spirit beast blankets, and 10,000-year spiritual milk exuding a fragrant, milky scent. There was also a luxurious baby carriage carved from divine essence. In an instant, the once ominous birthing chamber transformed into a joyous children's play area, brimming with cheerful atmosphere. Li Aoshan looked at the pink rattle, his brow deeply furrowed, worried that such a delicate item would erode the child's Dao heart. You were so furious you were speechless. You forced Li Aoshan to hold a jade bottle filled with spirit beast milk, telling him to stand still and practice. An hour later, strange phenomena filled the heavens and earth. The originally clear sky was suddenly engulfed by boundless purple chi. Immediately after, the void trembled, and countless sword hums resonated from every corner of the eastern barrens. Be it mundane iron, spiritual artifacts, or even some slumbering saint weapons, all automatically unsheathed themselves at this moment. Their sword tips point towards the Li clan, as if prostrating before an emperor. Grand Elder Li Tong was so agitated, his beard trembled as he loudly exclaimed, "This is the phenomenon of 10,000 swords worshipping the Lord. This child is indeed an innate supreme sword Dao talent." You two beamed with joy. It seems the system did not lie to me. This is indeed a being with an innate chaotic physique. However, just as everyone was anticipating, the purple key clouds in the sky suddenly condensed into a colossal, towering phantom. This phantom was still that of a child, yet it stood with its hands clasped behind its back, proudly upon the clouds, its eyes radiating an arrogance that proclaimed, "Above and below heaven, I alone am sovereign." Opposite it, the great Tao's laws manifested, condensing into countless phantoms of enchanting immortal maidens attempting to approach. The subsequent scene shook all cultivators in the eastern barrens. The phantom child, with a cold expression, casually slapped away all those immortal maiden phantoms. Immediately after, 2 rows of shimmering golden grand Tao truths manifested in the void. Within his heart, the natural sword intent, guided by the Divine Sword Manual's first page, seemed to cleave through all worldly affections, striking forth with terrifying power. The very next second, the entire Li clan and all the formidable cultivators of Donghua were plunged into a deathly silence. Your smile completely froze, the corner of your mouth twitching uncontrollably. The mortal world empress sighed, a sound filled with utter helplessness. It is over, there is no saving this situation. Just then, Li Aoshan's eyes lit up once more. Trembling with excitement, he raised his milk bottle and loudly proclaimed, as expected of. Before he could finish, a crisp pop echoed through the air. You swung your hand with immense force, directly sending Li Aoshan sprawling to the ground. "Oh, what a calamity," you sighed, gazing up at the heavens, tears unable to fall. Could it be that the Li clan's lineage is destined to be severed in this, the 4th generation? Detecting the birth of a 4th-generation descendant. Emergency rectification quest activated. The future of the clan cannot be jeopardized by one so straight-minded. Quest objective. Before the child matures or comprehends the world, alter its core values. Cultivated into a normal male, one who understands romance and charm. Quest reward. One-time consumable item, random starting point experience card. Time limit. The system's urgent prompt immediately ignited your battle spirit. Yes, there is still hope. With proper guidance and education, its skewed personality can certainly be corrected. Just then, from within the birthing chamber, a resounding wail finally echoed forth, but it lasted for merely a single second before falling utterly silent, replaced instead by an impossibly cold and tender voice, and even carrying a hint of utter disdain. "This infernal racket! Who is shouting outside?" Disturbing this seat's comprehension of the sword Dao. With a creak, the birthing chamber door was pushed open. A midwife, trembling, emerged, cradling a newborn wrapped in swaddling cloth. Her expression was even more unsightly than one in tears. She stammered, announcing it was a young master, yet her words held an unspeakable difficulty. You had no patience for her blathering. Rushing closer to examine the child, you saw the newborn was fair-skinned and plump, utterly adorable. Yet within its eyes shone a gaze of ancient vicissitude and chilling aloofness, as if it had already seen through the entirety of the mortal world. The infant cast a glance at you, its tiny brows furrowing slightly. Then its tender voice echoed directly into your mind. "Old man, your beard is far too disheveled. Such an untamed appearance makes it difficult to achieve great things." For a moment, you were utterly speechless. The corner of your mouth couldn't help but twitch several times. Immediately after, the infant's gaze shifted to Li Aoshan, who had just scrambled back to his feet. The disgust in its eyes became even more pronounced. To be a sword cultivator, yet to clutch a milk bottle, you have brought utter shame upon yourself. Upon hearing this, Liu Chen instantly froze in place and the entire courtyard once more fell into a deathly silence. You too widened your eyes, a myriad of thoughts galloping wildly through your mind. Is this truly a mere newborn child? Surely it is not some peerless ancient monster reincarnated to settle old scores? Meanwhile, far away in another domain of the Judian, deep within the celestial dome, a magnificent yet indifferent gaze pierced through the realm barrier, shining directly down upon the Donghua continent. That place was a vast world where ethereal qi swirled and majestic palaces floated in the sky. It was known as the Upper Realm. Within a magnificent palace engraved with the words Palace of Supreme Immortals, a white-robed woman slowly opened her eyes. The lower realm, it actually gave birth to a heartless Tao physique. Relay my decree. Spare no cost, bring this child back to the upper realm. Any who dare obstruct, kill without mercy. No sooner had her words fallen than several streaks of light shot forth from the immortal palace, carrying an air of supreme arrogance and crushing pressure, hurtling straight towards the passage connecting the two realms. The scene returns to the sword-seeking pavilion, located on the Li clan's divine island. You were holding a rattle drum, savoring this warm moment of grandfather-grandson affection. Suddenly, a thunderous explosion rent the air, shaking heaven and earth. An immense pressure, like a collapsing galaxy, poured down, instantly engulfing the entire divine island of the Li clan. That aura was so potent that the Li clan's newly condensed golden dragon of fortune let out an uneasy growl. Immediately after, a female voice, like thunder rumbling from the Juchen itself, boomed into everyone's ears. You paltry ants of the lower realm, why do you not immediately kneel to welcome the emissaries of the upper realm? Even the grand beings who had entered secluded cultivation for 100,000 years solely in pursuit of immortality, now upon their awakening, found themselves ensnared by the ambitions of the upper realm. You paltry ants of the lower realm, why do you not immediately kneel to welcome the emissaries of the upper realm? At this moment, a female voice like thunder from the Jushin boomed into everyone's ears once more. All members of the Li clan instantly blanched. Yet, facing this sudden and terrifying anomaly, you remained utterly unfazed. You even meticulously wiped away a speck of milk from your grandson's mouth. Immediately after, you casually placed the milk bottle into the stunned hands of Ling Qingxiu, who stood beside you. Only then did you step out of the room, looking up at the sky. There, through a colossal fissure in the celestial dome, an enormous pillar of light thundered downwards. Within that pillar of light, an ethereal silhouette of a woman, clad in snow-white ancient robes, her face indistinct, floated majestically in the air. Endless immortal radiance swirled around her, her gaze cold and aloof. She declared that she had sensed the presence of a natural-born unfeeling Tao physique within the lower realms. Bao Yun obediently offered up the infant. With a dismissive flourish, she cast down an ice-cold command token, her every movement radiating utter contempt, as if tossing alms to a common beggar. Upon hearing this, the protagonist let out a sardonic laugh, his hand swiftly and steadily seizing the token, turning it over in his grasp. The very next instant, a sharp, crisp crack echoed through the air, stunning all who witnessed it. He had, in fact, directly crushed the guiding token which had been radiating immortal light, reducing it to mere dust. Whence came this madwoman? Demanding an infant in broad daylight. The spectral figure of the woman was visibly stunned for a fleeting moment, before her rage erupted. Impudent wretch. Do you even know to whom you speak? To defy the decree of the Immortal Palace is to court the extermination of your 9 clans. Exterminate my 9 clans? The protagonist let out a cold, mocking laugh, slowly ascending into the air. Behind him, the colossal phantom of a golden dragon suddenly materialized, his very own golden dragon Qi. An ancient dragon's roar then rent the heavens, shaking the very sky in clouds. It forcefully repelled the oppressive might descending from the skies. In my domain, you dare speak of exterminating the 9 clans? His eyes, sharp as lightning, fixed directly upon the heavens. Today, even if your esteemed princess were to descend herself, seeking to harm a single soul of the Li clan, I would ensure she pays an unforgettable price. These defiant words utterly enraged the guiding envoy. Without further preamble, she conjured a colossal finger, imbued with an aura of absolute annihilation, which descended from the heavens, aimed directly at the Wenjian pavilion. Yet the protagonist showed not an ounce of fear. Instead, a sinister knowing smile played upon his lips. So, you wish to make a move. Very well then, allow me to test my new treasure. With a flick of his wrist, an ancient tortoise shell materialized in his palm. It was the Xuanwu Heavenly Shield, a formidable Dao Soldier-grade defensive artifact granted by his system. Instantly, he produced the dragon-patterned black gold and struck the ancient shell, immediately activating the intricate Dao patterns etched upon its surface. The very next second, the tortoise shell, once palm-sized, expanded dramatically, growing colossal against the wind. It transformed into a primordial divine mountain, rising to block the descending colossal finger. A deafening, muffled explosion reverberated across the entire eastern wilderness. The world-destroying finger struck the ancient tortoise shell, yet left not a single blemish. Instead, the counterformation etched upon the shield activated, shattering the colossal finger into countless fragments. From the heavens, the guiding envoy let out a guttural shriek of agony, for the projection of her mighty finger had utterly disintegrated. What manner of defensive artifact is this? Observing her horrified expression, the protagonist solemnly declared, "This, my dear, is called the Wang Bakan Lu Dong, formation as unmoving as a majestic mountain." The guiding envoy, seething, retorted, "Despicable. Even with such a powerful Dao soldier defense, I shall exhaust your very essence." The guiding envoy's eyes blazed with venomous intent. Her hands swiftly formed intricate seals, preparing to unleash an even more potent divine ability. Deplete us, you shall have no such opportunity. The protagonist simply shook his head. With that, he abruptly turned and shouted down towards the ground below. My dear grandson, someone dares to steal your milk money. Tell me, what shall we do about this? Within the unfeeling Tao of the Supreme Immortal Palace, in the nursery, Li Tianyi, having just finished his powdered milk, suddenly wore an expression of subtle fury. This venerable one cultivates the supreme sword Tao. Is this mere trivial, unfeeling Tao truly worthy of guiding me? The very next second, a veritable deluge of urine imbued with primordial chaotic qi was instantly discharged by the infant. With lightning-fast reflexes, the protagonist swiftly snatched the hot, damp, and pungent diaper. Then, channeling his full Tao power, he hurled it skyward with immense force. The ancient hag, the guiding envoy, who was about to unleash her ultimate move, suddenly saw a streak of yellow, white, and green fabric hurtling towards her. She instinctively flicked her sleeve to swat it away. Yet, to her horror, the moment the diaper contacted her protective immortal radiance, the primordial chaotic qi within erupted. A terrifying sizzle filled the air, like concentrated sulfuric acid splashing across flesh. The guiding envoy immediately let out another blood-curdling shriek. The next instant, her very visage began to corrode and melt away. The once high and mighty spirit clan immortal maiden was instantly transformed into a grotesque fiend. I will slaughter you all. The very next moment, the guiding envoy's ethereal projection began to violently shimmer and distort. It was clear her true self, enraged beyond measure, was preparing to forcibly descend upon this realm. Wish to descend. There is no door for you. The protagonist's eyes suddenly turned glacial, his previous jesting demeanor vanishing completely. Immediately after, a brilliant golden light flared in his hand, revealing a resplendent golden brick. It was a supreme-grade Dao Soldier. This is the heaven-overturning benefactor. When your essence weakens, claim their very life for me. As this thought crossed your mind, you crushed the void beneath your feet, appearing instantly above the projection of the emissary. You tightly gripped the golden brick in your hand, aiming for her crown and slamming it down. This strike not only gathered the immense power of the Li family's golden dragon Qi luck, but also carried the lingering might of your peak form's relic. A crisp, shattering sound rang out as the emissary let out a yelp, and the passage connecting the two realms was, astoundingly, shattered by your single brick. My Taishang Immortal Palace and you shall never coexist. Wait until the realm barrier between our worlds loosens. This venerable one shall certainly... The emissary's unwilling roar gradually dissipated into the void. The chaotic sky above slowly restored its pristine blue. Holding the brick, you stood proudly amidst the clouds, raising your middle finger to the heavens. Never coexist? Very well then. You need not soon enough, I shall personally lead my people up there. Watch as I transform your wretched immortal palace into a public latrine. All the members of the Li family below witnessed this scene, their eyes wide with shock, before a sky-shattering cheer erupted. As night fell, you sat alone on the rooftop, playfully fiddling with the primordial token you had casually acquired from the Taichu Saint Sun. Just then, a graceful figure, that of the true empress, quietly appeared by your side. What troubles you? Are you still concerned about matters of the upper realm? Concerned perhaps not entirely, but passively enduring blows is not the style of Li Changsheng. You twirled the token in your hand, a cold smile gracing the corner of your lips. The Taishang Star Palace will surely not let this matter rest easily. Though the passage between the two realms is temporarily broken, with the methods of the upper realm, descending once more is no impossible feat. Moreover, you gazed into the distant void. I sense that within this lower realm, there are quite a few restless rats stirring. They are the hounds of the upper realm, awaiting an opportunity to bite us. Therefore, I intend to grant them an opportunity. You rose, a cunning glint in your eyes. Why not let them deliver themselves to our doorstep? This mighty emperor, who had secluded himself for 100,000 years in pursuit of immortality, had just awakened only to face upper realm forces descending to abduct his kin, all while their hounds stirred restlessly below. Yet passively enduring blows was never your style. Thus, you decided to grant them an opportunity to deliver themselves to your doorstep. A day later, a shocking piece of news spread throughout the universe. The Li family of Li Changsheng would host a 100-day celebration for the 4th-generation Emperor Venerable Li Tianyi in 3 days' time. It was said that the gifts for this celebration would not only include supreme-grade Dao weapons and immortal medicine, but also the mysterious key to unlock the true inheritance of the Red Dust Empress. Furthermore, rumors circulated that you would select Dao protectors and even a marriage prospect for your grandnephew during the banquet. The entire cultivation world immediately erupted into a frenzy. Forces from all corners prepared lavish gifts, rushing towards the Li family compound. In some dark corners, shadowed figures also opened their eyes. These foolish natives of the lower realm dare to flaunt themselves in such a manner. Report to the upper realm, the opportunity has arrived. A heaven-shaking conspiracy targeting the Li family was quietly germinating amidst the festive atmosphere. At this moment, you watched the bustling crowd, a triumphant smile blooming in your heart. Come forth, all of you. I have prepared a grand gift just for you. 3 days had passed. Today, the Li family manor radiated auspicious qi to the heavens with myriad rays of dazzling light. 99 welcoming paths were paved with high-grade spirit stones. Stretching from the mountain gate to the azure clouds, even the serving maidens responsible for tea and pouring water were cultivators at the dragon transformation realm. The guards at the gates led exotic beasts with primordial bloodlines. Even the tea leaves floating in the guests' cups faintly contained circulating Dao charm. This magnificent scene caused the guests from the great sacred lands and imperial dynasties of Donghua to turn red-eyed with envy, wishing they could marry into this family and cling to the empress's influence. At this moment, the main hall was filled with guests. At the loud announcement of Elder Shini, a giant warm jade platter was placed on the red carpet in the center of the hall, laden with glittering treasures. The first item was a small wooden sword carved with father's love like a mountain by Li Aoxian. The second was a mini black tortoise shield that Li Go claimed could block a blow from a saint. The third was a young true dragon horn casually acquired by Li Ergao. The fourth was the Taishang Forgetfulness record, shimmering with starlight. But what truly captured everyone's attention was the Empress's jade pendant, radiating a red glow placed at the very center. The moment that jade pendant appeared, the lively atmosphere in the Great Hall immediately froze. Countless greedy gazes covertly converged upon it. The fish has taken the bait. The protagonist inwardly sneered, yet on his face he maintained a benevolent smile, waving his hand towards them. Quickly, bring forth our little birthday star. Following a rather perfunctory wail, Lin Qingxue was seen carrying the fair-skinned and plump Li Tianyi as she stepped out. Li Tianyi wore an unwilling expression, deeply thinking, I, an innate sword embryo, must perform this childish game in public? How humiliating. Tianyi, go choose something you like. Lin Qingxue gently placed the child onto a ceremonial tray. Li Tianyi sat amidst a pile of treasures, glancing around. He found the wooden sword too crude, the shield too rustic, and the dragon carving too stiff. Only the Taishang Wangxinglu scroll was barely acceptable. Yet, just as he was about to reach for the scroll, his gaze was suddenly drawn to that crimson jade pendant. Not because it was the key to some hidden vault, but because he keenly sensed that the jade pendant had been tampered with. To dare scheme against this exalted one? You are truly courting death. Li Tianyi, brimming with triumph, allowed a cold smile to play on his lips. Thus, under the gazes of all present, he abandoned the scroll, coordinating his small limbs to crawl towards the crimson jade pendant. The guests immediately gasped in continuous astonishment. They marveled, exclaiming that this child indeed possessed the wisdom of a great emperor. Yet just as Li Tianyi's hand was about to touch the jade pendant, a thunderous roar suddenly echoed from the crowd, Attack! Immediately afterwards, several loud explosions erupted, and more than 18 rogue cultivators who had been sitting discreetly at the back suddenly unleashed a torrent of aura. They wore black robes adorned with skull emblems, radiating a chillingly sinister and eerie aura. They were in fact assassins from the Huangquan men. This is ill, that is the aura of a quasi-emperor. With the sudden appearance of 3 quasi-emperors, the entire hall instantly erupted into chaos. The leading black-robed figure conjured a pitch-black formation map, instantly sealing off the retreat path of Li Ocean and Lin Qingxue. Simultaneously, his other hand transformed into a ghostly claw, shooting straight towards Li Tianyi and the jade pendant on the tray. Ha 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 ha, Li Chongsheng. You never expected that your clan-protecting great formation had already been tampered with by us long ago, did you? The black-robed figure laughed maniacally, his eyes gleaming with triumph. They had received orders from the Taishang Shengong in the upper realm, coordinating this internal and external strike for this very moment. Yet facing this sudden deadly assault, the protagonist, seated calmly in the main chair, did not even stir. Instead, he spoke 6 words with utter indifference. Li Go, close the gates and release the hounds. As soon as his words fell, an excited acknowledgement from Li Go reverberated from beneath the great hall. In an instant, the originally gleaming floor lit up with dense, intricate formation patterns. This was not the clan-protecting great formation at all. It was the Juyu Shidi Duan Zijuezun Kunxian Zhen meticulously laid out by Li Go. As the formation activated, hundreds of dragon head-shaped spouts around the great hall suddenly spewed forth a noxious, verdant gas. It was an exotic poison brewed from countless venomous herbs and virulent liquids. This is grave. It's poison. Hold your breath quickly. The black-robed figures were horrified, attempting to raise protective shields. But in the next second, they discovered with terror that the noxious gas was completely unaffected by spiritual energy shields, directly penetrating their bodies through their pores. Li Chongsheng, you despicable wretch, how dare you use poison? The leading quasi-emperor assassin struggled, letting out one final shout. Don't get complacent, we still have a hidden card. What of the void? With that, he crushed a talisman. It was a Po Jie Fu bestowed by the upper realm, capable of bypassing spatial blockades and forcibly teleporting its target away. The very next second, a silver pillar of light instantly enveloped Li Tianyi on the tray. Oh no, it's spatial law. Great Elder Li Tong's face turned ashen with fear. Quickly stop him. He's a path cultivator who entered seclusion for 100,000 years, solely in pursuit of longevity. He just awakened, and now an upper realm power has descended to snatch our child. At this very moment, a silver pillar of light instantly enveloped Li Tianyi on the tray. This is dire. It's spatial law. Great Elder Li Tong's face turned ashen with fear. Quickly stop him. Yet, the protagonist remained utterly unpanicked. No need to stop him. Come forth, Duozi Duo Futa. Immediately after, with a mere thought, an exquisite 9-story pagoda suddenly flew out from between his brows. In an instant, it transformed into a colossal object, 100 zhang tall, hovering above the great hall, suppressing all with his command. The pagoda spun, cascading down 10,000 rays of golden light. The silver pillar of light, which had intended to teleport Li Tianyi away, shattered with a crack into countless specks of light under the golden radiance. No, how could this be? That was a celestial talisman from the upper realm. The black-robed leader plunged into utter despair. At this moment, the poisonous key within the Grand Hall was precisely controlled by the formation, targeting only the assassins. Though the other guests turned pale with fear, they remained unharmed. You stepped before the black-robed leader, looking down at him. You spoke. Tell me, what benefits did the upper realm promise you that you would throw your lives away here? The opponent gritted his teeth and let out a cold huff. Clearly, the loyalty had seeped deep into his very bones as he presented a defiant air, as if daring you to kill or cleave him. You wish for death? It will not be so easy. You let out a cold chuckle, then turned your gaze towards Li Tianyi. The young boy sat there with a calm expression, clutching a jade pendant. Facing the recent chaos, he had not even blinked. You nodded in approval, then shifted to a beaming smile. My dear grandson, that scoundrel just now tried to seize you. Li Tianyi looked up at you, then glanced at the black-robed leader convulsing on the ground. Immediately after, he slowly raised his other hand, which held an object. It was the unsightly wooden sword crafted by Li Oxian. Then, to everyone's astonishment, he adopted a perfectly standard sword cultivation stance, gently swinging the wooden sword towards the black-robed leader. Though there was no fluctuation of power in that instant, everyone present perceived an incredibly pure and sharp will. That was the heavenly sword will. An invisible sword chi shot forth from the wooden sword, impossibly precise, slicing off a lock of hair from the black-robed man. Though the damage was negligible, the humiliation was immense. I was actually wounded by a mere child. The black-robed leader's eyes widened. Unable to draw another breath, he directly fainted. The entire hall immediately fell into a deathly silence, followed by thunderous applause and cries of astonishment. A born sword god, truly a born sword god. Li Aoshan, overcome with emotion, burst into tears. He rushed forward, scooped up his son, and showered him with kisses. Li Tianyi, however, pushed away his father's face in disdain, sighing helplessly inwardly. I merely wished to test my skill. Who knew this piece of wood would be so brittle? Once the commotion settled, the banquet resumed. After this upheaval, all the forces who harbored ill intentions became entirely obedient. As the banquet concluded, you sealed the cultivation of all captured assassins, then tossed them as if they were discarded armor to Li Ergo. Li Ergo scratched his head, a blank expression on his face, and mumbled. He doesn't know how to interrogate. You couldn't help but roll your eyes. Who told you to interrogate them? Haven't you been researching the art of beast taming recently, the one that merges man and beast? These individuals are thick-skinned and fleshy. They'll make perfect test subjects for you, or perhaps training partners for your precious spirit beasts. Upon hearing this, Li Ergu's eyes immediately lit up. Excitedly, he dragged away a group of half-dead quasi-emperors. Having settled all matters, you returned to your secret chamber. You retrieved the Hongshen Empress's jade pendant along with the cross-realm communication talisman you had taken from the black-robed man. At this moment, the communication talisman glowed faintly, clearly indicating that someone from the upper realm was anxiously inquiring about the results. You infused a wisp of spiritual energy to connect. Immediately, a solemn and hurried voice transmitted from the other side. Has it been successful? You cleared your throat and immediately retorted, Successful, my foot! I am your grandfather, Li Changsheng. Tell your princesses to wash their necks. This old man has already begun constructing a teleportation formation. In less than 3 months, this old man will lead his forces up there and tear down every tile from the Grand Elder's roofs. With that, without waiting for the other party's reaction, you directly crushed the communication talisman. A new mission was then issued. Counterattack the upper realm. Requirement: within 3 months, the host must gather all necessary materials to construct a cross-realm teleportation formation, including spatial essence stones, void marrow, world boundary fragments, and more. 3 months, you say? Hearing the system's prompt, you stroked your chin, your gaze falling upon a certain spot on the table. It is said that the old Dragon King of the West Sea Dragon Palace possesses a world boundary fragment. Moreover, he also has a daughter. As this thought crossed your mind, the corner of your lips curved into a slight smirk. Old Third, your blessings have arrived. In another location, upon the Divine Fire Peak of the Divine Island, crimson light pierced the sky year-round, and fiery waves surged. This was also the most troublesome place for the clan members, second only to Dogdao Peak. For here resided a madman, the third divine son of the Li clan. Li Tiazu, with hands clasped behind his back, arrived striding upon the void's fiery waves, his gaze fixed upon the majestic red copper Grand Hall. Immediately after, a resounding crash echoed. You directly unleashed a wave of Emperor-level pressure, forcibly shattering the dragon-severing stone gate, which weighed 10,000 tons. The next moment, a resonant roar echoed from deep within Divine Fire Peak. Who dares disturb this venerable one's 9 revolutions body-tempering snow song? Immediately after, a young man, whose muscles rippled like dragons, burst forth. He was drenched in sweat, holding a primordial heaven-shattering hammer nearly as tall as himself, and around him swirled the earth-core red lotus flame. However, when he clearly saw that it was you who had arrived, that fierce aura immediately receded, but the passion and dissatisfaction in his eyes did not diminish in the slightest. Old ancestor, why aren't you enjoying your blessings in Wu Ru Xiang and instead come to this god-forsaken place of mine? Li Tiezhu placed the massive hammer on the ground, grumbling as he looked at the old ancestor whose lips couldn't help but twitch. This was utterly unlike the scion of a prestigious clan. He was clearly a crude blacksmith. Thus, you forced yourself to adopt a benevolent expression. Tiezhu, stop forging for now. Your old ancestor has found you a marriage prospect, the third princess of the West Sea Dragon Palace. Rumor has it that Maiden not only possesses a noble status, but her family also controls vast mineral veins. I'm not going. Li Tieju didn't even think twice, directly refusing, his eyes filled with disdain. What use are weak creatures like women? Immediately after, he pointed to a black iron puppet behind him, his face glowing with passion as he boasted. Old ancestor, look, this is the black Vajra golem I just refined. Its entire body is crafted from 10,000-year-old profound iron. It never tires. It can even withstand my heavenly tribulations for me. Can a woman do that? Can a woman withstand one swing of my hammer? Does a woman possess such perfect rune patterns and engravings on her body? Upon hearing these words, your veins bulged on your forehead, but you couldn't be bothered to argue further with him. You directly took out a faded yellow sheepskin scroll from your chest. Li Tieju's previously indifferent gaze was instantly captivated, his nose even twitched, as if he had smelled the scent of a peerless treasure. You calmly explained this is a replica of the lost ancient Gongxiao clan's true puppet mechanism manual. Inside it records the legendary method for refining the 12 golden colossi. What? The 12 golden colossi? Li Tieju's breathing grew ragged, his eyes turned bloodshot, his expression was 1,000 times more agitated than if he had seen a peerless beauty. Seeing that the fish had taken the bait, you continued to add more. Not only that, it is rumored that within the West Sea Dragon Palace's treasury, there is a piece of deep-sea sinking iron. That is a superb divine material for refining puppet joints, allowing inanimate objects to gain sentience. If you become the Dragon Palace's son-in-law, this thing, old ancestor, say no more. Before you could finish speaking, Li Tieju knelt down with a thud. For the prosperity of our clan, even becoming a son-in-law of the Dragon Palace is acceptable. Just let me enter their treasury. Hearing this, you were speechless. Although the objective had been achieved, you couldn't shake the feeling that this grandson's motives were impure. But you were too lazy to expose him, so you simply waved your hand. All right, quickly pack up, wash off the sweat from your body, and we will depart immediately. Half an hour later, above the Li clan's plaza, an ancient-looking warship yet exuding a warlike aura floated into the sky. This was the wave-breaking galleon that Li Tieju had personally refitted. Its hull was covered in thick black iron armor, and both sides were equipped with massive spirit energy cannons. With a great roar, the warship immediately shot forth like an arrow leaving a bowstring, tearing through the layers of clouds as it sped towards the West Sea. The majestic great emperor had entered seclusion for 100,000 years, solely to pursue immortality. Now, having just awakened, he suddenly learned he only had 3 days left to live. The only way to prolong his life was to rely on his clan's descendants to marry and have children. Thus, to find wives for those eccentric grandsons, you decided to personally take action and go to propose marriage. At this moment, in the main hall of the West Sea Dragon Palace, the old Dragon King Aoguang sat upon his coral throne, sighing softly. The Four Seas Dragon Clan Assembly is approaching, and those old fellows all have their matches. Only my little girl still has no one who dares to marry her. Prime Minister Gi cautiously spoke from the side. Your Majesty, although the third princess's personality is a bit headstrong, she is, after all, a true dragon bloodline. Perhaps we could hold another matchmaking assembly? Aoguang cried out, heartbroken. We've already held 800 such assemblies. Last time, the young master of the Chi Yu clan came to propose marriage. As a result, she scorned him for being weak and with one punch knocked out all his teeth. Now within a 10,000-mile radius, any male who hears the name Aoluan runs faster than a fish. Must my West Sea lineage end here? However, just as the old Dragon King was in despair and heartache, the entire Crystal Palace suddenly shook violently. Your Majesty, we are under attack. A sea yaksha, part of the Sea Patrol, frantically crawled in. It reported that a mass of iron had fallen from the sky, directly shattering 3 layers of the water-repelling barrier, and was now hurtling towards the main palace gate. What? Who dares to brazenly intrude upon my dragon palace? Aoguang, seething with fury, seized his water-splitting divine trident and led a contingent of aquatic powerhouses as they stormed out. As they emerged from the palace gates, they beheld a black iron warship, its aura surging like a falling meteorite, crashing down with a mighty roar onto the Dragon Palace square. The hatch opened and spiritual energy billowed outwards. The protagonist, leading Li Tieju, stepped out of the vessel. Where's the West Sea Dragon King? Aoguang scrutinized them, and a terrifying oppressive might, emanating from the depths of their very souls, instantly made him shudder. Changshan Great Emperor. Aoguang instantly recalled the protagonist's fearsome reputation from just days prior. He hastily transformed his expression into one of deferential flattery. This humble one was unaware of the great emperor's esteemed arrival. I beg forgiveness for failing to greet you from afar. No need for such courtesies, the protagonist said, casually waving a hand, and directly stated his intentions. This old one has come today to bestow upon you a fated opportunity. Aoguang was utterly dumbfounded. The protagonist then pulled Li Tieju, who had been standing behind him, forward. This is my clan's third son, Li Tieju. He was born with divine strength and has been deeply immersed in potent cultivation since birth. I've heard your third princess is currently unattached. I see them as a match made in heaven, thus I have specifically come to propose marriage. As these words left his lips, Aoguang was instantly overwhelmed, his mind reeling from such immense unexpected fortune. The grandson of the Changshan Great Emperor himself had come to propose to his tempestuous daughter. This was truly a mountain of gold falling from the heavens. However, Aoguang cast a discerning glance over Li Tieju. Though the young man appeared robust, his attire was far from that of an immortal scion. Instead, he bore a striking resemblance to a crude mountain hunter. Ah, for the great emperor to cast his benevolent gaze upon my humble daughter is indeed the supreme fortune of the West Sea. Though excited, Ao Guang still harbored a sliver of worry. It's just that my humble daughter has loved martial arts since childhood, possessing a wild and unruly temperament. She once swore an oath that she would only accept a true martial paragon as her husband. He glanced at Li Tiazu, a flicker of doubt in his eyes. Could this seemingly simple-minded youth possibly defeat his daughter, who had awakened the ancient demonic dragon bloodline? Little did he expect Li Tiezhu, who had been intently studying the material of the floor tiles, suddenly raised his head upon hearing these words, his eyes flashing with a sharp golden glint. Esteemed father-in-law, please rest assured. He took a step forward, his voice firm. As long as it is not a contest of delicate arts when it comes to battle, I shall humble any opponent. Coincidentally, I have recently refined a new magical artifact that lacks a proper sparring partner to test its might. Quickly, let your esteemed daughter come forth. Ao Guang looked at this audacious young man, utterly speechless for a moment. This young man's emotional intelligence must have been utterly incinerated in some alchemy furnace. Not long after, the martial arena was instantly packed with shrimp soldiers and crab generals, all eager to witness the ensuing spectacle. In the center of the arena stood a young maiden, clad in purple-gold dragon-scaled battle armor, proudly clutching a Fangtian Huaji. This was Ao Luan. Though exquisitely beautiful, a chilling, killing intent radiated from between her brows. You are the one who wishes to marry me? Ao Luan, one hand gripping her halberd, pointed its tip directly at Li Tiaju. Looking at your foolish demeanor, she sneered, this princess advises you to quickly take your leave. But Li Tiaju seemed completely oblivious to her words. Instead, he stared wide-eyed at her battle armor, muttering, the material, it's not bad. Immediately after, he actually took 2 steps forward, reaching out a hand, intent on touching Ao Luan's armor. Hey beauty, could you spare a scale for me? And your halberd too, could I perhaps take its measure? As these outrageous words left his lips, the entire arena instantly fell into stunned silence. Ao Guang closed his eyes in utter despair. Indeed, in the very next second, Ao Luan erupted in a furious rage. You utterly despicable wretch! You dare to covet my dragon scales? You are truly courting death! A thunderous explosion resounded as the ground of the martial arena shattered. The Fangtian Huaji, imbued with the might of a myriad of thunderbolts, cleaved directly towards Li Tiaju's head. Our protagonist's brows furrowed. Just as he was about to intervene, an unexpected scene unfolded in the very next second. Confronted by the fatal strike, Li Tiaju did not evade. Instead, a grin spread across his face. Excellent. Just in time to test the defensive capabilities of the Hantian Golem. With that, he waved his hand, conjuring and then tossing forth a pitch-black metal orb. With a series of metallic creaks, the orb unfolded in mid-air, countless joints interlocking in a flash. In an instant, it transformed into a towering golem 3 zhang in height. Li Tiaju's figure flickered, and he directly merged into the golem's chest. A low hum reverberated as the golem's eyes flared with intense crimson light. Its gigantic black iron fist rose to intercept the striking Fangchen Huaji. A crisp, resounding clang echoed through the arena, and a terrifying shockwave directly blew away the surrounding shrimp soldiers and crab generals. Ao Luan felt an overwhelming, irresistible surge of immense power crash into her. Her entire body was sent flying back several tens of zhang. In stark contrast, the pitch-black golem merely recoiled half a step, not a single blemish or scratch marring its surface. What is that thing? Ao Luan stared in shock at the steel monster, devoid of any spiritual energy fluctuations. From within the golem, the excited laughter of Li Tiaju rang out. Woman, your strength is passable, but your technique is lacking. Next, behold the myriad swords unison technique. A series of rattling sounds echoed as the golem's shoulders and chest suddenly opened, revealing countless densely packed muzzles. Immediately after, an innumerable barrage of Fuan-carved arrows rained down like a furious storm. Ao Luan's expression changed. She had no choice but to swing her bladed halberd, forming a brilliant light shield before her, desperately trying to block the onslaught. The next second, the martial arena was instantly engulfed in flames. Our protagonist, watching from the stands, couldn't help but sigh in praise, secretly thinking, this boy has actually integrated artifact forging and array formations to such a degree. Amidst the inferno, an unprecedented excitement flickered in Ao Luan's once arrogant eyes. Immediately after, she let out a roar, her form transforming directly into a 100 zhang-long violet gold divine dragon. The violet gold divine dragon roared, charging directly with its mighty dragon body towards the black iron golem. Meanwhile, a great emperor who had spent 100,000 years in seclusion pursuing immortality had just awakened to suddenly discover he had only 3 days left to live. The only way to extend his lifespan was to rely on marrying and having children with a member of his clan. At this moment, the violet gold divine dragon roared, directly using its powerful dragon body to charge towards the black iron golem. Li Tizu, controlling the golem, advanced instead of retreating, immediately clashing with the colossal dragon. Dust billowed as the 2 giant monsters exchanged blow after blow, sparks flying from their impact. All those around watched, utterly stunned. This was no mere martial arts contest for a marriage partner. It was clearly 2 primeval monstrous beasts battling for territory. Half an hour later, the battle concluded. The martial arena had been reduced to a pile of rubble. Li Tiaju's golem had a broken arm, and Ao Luan, having reverted to human form, was bruised and panting heavily. The 2 lay amidst the wreckage, looking at each other. You're not bad at all. Ao Luan wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth, her eyes filled with admiration. Naturally, that power was from you, Li Tiaju said, proudly puffing out his chest. Your dragon form isn't bad either. To be able to withstand my explosive arrows, that's truly impressive. Ao Luan arrogantly lifted her head, then blushed. Hey, you artificer, I've decided to marry you. Li Tieju was momentarily stunned, scratching his head. Really? So can I go to your family's treasure vault and take that deep-sea obsidian wood? Line 29 is a continuation of Li Tieju's previous line, not a new line. Upon hearing this, our protagonist was speechless. Yet no matter how peculiar the process, the outcome seemed to be set. Discovering that his third grandson, Li Tiezu, had successfully found a marriage partner, the reward was a fragment of a realm wall, a blueprint for a special ancient void warship, and the family's natal destiny dragon blessing. The success rate for artifact forging for the entire clan would increase by 100%. Looking at the rewards, our protagonist breathed a sigh of relief. The 3-month deadline was approaching, and finally, the materials for the teleportation array were sufficient. On the Li clan's divine island, amidst rumbling thunder, our protagonist piloted the ink-black, ferocious-looking warship, steadily landing it in the center of the plaza. The hatch opened, and he stepped out with his hands clasped behind his back. Behind him stood a smiling Li Tieju and Ao Luan, the dragoness now in human form, adorned in violet gold battle armor. Li Go, who had been waiting for a long time, rode a white tiger, whistling and cheering. Seeing this, our protagonist laughed and waved, then his expression turned serious as his gaze met clan head Li Zhantian, who was approaching. Li Zhantian excitedly stepped forward, reporting on the material collection. He stated that apart from the realm wall fragment our protagonist brought back, all the void spirit stones, star essence ore, and divine origin in the vault had been moved to the forbidden grounds of the back mountain, awaiting his command. Hearing this, our protagonist's eyes gleamed. Passively taking a beating had never been his style. If the Grand Supreme Immortal Palace dared to make a move, they should be prepared to have their arms severed. Thus, our protagonist decisively ordered the activation of the clan-protecting Grand Array, sealing off the entire island. He then led Li Tiezu and Li Go to the back mountain, vowing to construct a heavenly staircase leading to the upper realm. In an instant, a heavenly gate was erected in the forbidden grounds of the back mountain. This place, originally the most spiritually abundant area of the Li clan, had now been leveled, filled with precious materials piled high like mountains. Li Tiezu gazed at the realm wall fragment before him, radiating spatial fluctuations, his eyes burning with fervent excitement. He thumped his chest, assuring our protagonist that by fusing the fragment into the array core and coordinating it with the Grand Luo Sky Circulation Teleportation Array, they could absolutely establish a stable passage directly to the upper realm. Our protagonist nodded in satisfaction, then instructed Li Go to be responsible for security, absolutely unwilling to encounter any chaotic spatial currents or be reverse-tracked by the enemy during the teleportation process. Li Go confidently stated that he had designed 3 contingencies: void countercurrent, reverse guidance, and self-destruct and severing. Even if the opponent were an immortal king, they would not be able to follow the passage to infiltrate. Our protagonist waved his hand, declaring the commencement. What followed was the official beginning of a magnificent infrastructure construction project. Li Tieju swung his massive hammer, smashing spirit crystals into the earth veins. Each strike contained mysterious laws activating the profound power of the earth veins. Li Go, holding formation flags, moved like a butterfly through a garden, traversing the formation cores, engraving complex and abstruse defensive talismans. And as for you, our protagonist, you sat cross-legged in the void, summoning the pagoda of many blessings and the heaven-overturning seal. These 2 emperor weapons used the might of the earth to suppress the void, fully harmonizing the chaotic spiritual energy. It was not until the dawn of the 3rd day, as the first rays of sunlight descended, that a soul-shaking tremor suddenly resonated throughout heaven and earth. A colossal black gold gate, 100 jang tall and sparkling with starlight, now stood majestically in the rear mountain. At its center was a shimmering light blue barrier rippling like water, exuding a dense aura of spatial laws. Witnessing this, our protagonist slowly descended, a faint smile playing on his lips, knowing deep down that the moment for vengeance had arrived. At noon, before the teleportation gate, the elites of the Li clan moved in and out. Even the golden guard dog wore a glistening set of silver dog armor. Our protagonist stood upon a high platform, his gaze sweeping over the eccentric yet powerful expeditionary force before him, a trace of amusement welling up in his heart. Li Aotian, a heavy sword strapped to his back, cradled a suckling infant in his arms, claiming the baby found the spiritual energy of the lower realm too thin and wished to breathe in the essence of the upper realm. Just then, Li Tianyi, still swaddled in his blanket, used his divine sense to transmit a message to our protagonist, declaring that he sensed the detestable aura of the Supreme Immortal Palace and wished to seek it out. Our protagonist turned his head to look at Li Go, seeing that he was not only fully armed himself, but had also distributed a turtle shell shield and a regular shield to each of the 3,000 formation masters behind him. It was clear their defenses had been maximized, such that even heavenly thunder and earthly fire would be resisted for at least half an incense stick's time. Li Erqiu meanwhile rode the White Tiger Queen, followed by a horde of primordial exotic beasts roaring fiercely. They clamored, eager to taste the immortal cranes of the upper realm. Turning to the formidable duo, Li Tieju and Ao Luan, they stood atop the shoulder of a 30-zhang tall colossal puppet. Ao Luan, wielding her Fangchenwaji, her eyes burning with sky-high battle intent, declared that anyone who dared obstruct their path would have their bones broken. Beholding the surging battle spirit of his descendants, our protagonist was deeply satisfied. He loudly praised their vigor, but then, a characteristic smile bloomed on his face. He reminded everyone that they were civilized people, and when visiting the upper realm, courtesy must precede force. Immediately, the descendants collectively roared, "Understood. For love and peace we shall certainly let the Supreme Immortal Palace experience the warmth of family." Our protagonist nodded in satisfaction, then turned to face the colossal teleportation gate and softly called out a single word. The next second, the void subtly rippled. The Empress, in her crimson robes, appeared beside him. She chose not to join the army, opting instead to guard the Li clan. She adjusted his collar, earnestly advising him to crush his jade talisman if he found himself outmatched. Our protagonist chuckled heartily, asking, "Have I ever suffered a loss?" Then, with a sweep of his hand towards the teleportation gate, he issued the command, "Depart!" The next second, with a thunderous roar, the grand army surged like a flood into the light blue barrier. This mighty great emperor, who had secluded himself for 100,000 years solely in pursuit of immortality. Now, barely awake, he was already being targeted by the upper realm forces. But passively enduring blows was not his style. Thus, he personally led his clansmen to charge forth. And coincidentally, this day marked the Supreme Immortal Palace's once in 10,000 years grand ceremony of absolute emotion. On the colossal white jade plaza, tens of thousands of female cultivators sat cross-legged. Upon a high platform, the palace lord of the Supreme Immortal Palace, Immortal Maiden Jueqing, was eloquently indoctrinating her disciples, propagating the heretical doctrine of the great Tao of ruthlessness. Just then the void suddenly shook violently. The previously tranquil immortal clouds were instantly torn apart by a surge of savage power. Immediately after, a shattering sound reverberated. The void shattered like a mirror, and a gigantic black vortex appeared in midair. The female law enforcement elder in charge of guarding the realm, upon seeing this, screamed loudly. Hundreds of flying swords soared into the sky, attempting to block this sudden upheaval. But the next second, a ferocious black iron warship charged forth. With an arrogant and tyrannical posture, it smashed apart the hundreds of flying swords. Then it crashed heavily into the center of the white jade plaza. In an instant, smoke and dust billowed and debris flew everywhere, causing tens of thousands of female cultivators to shriek in terror, their faces turning pale as they retreated in disarray. The Supreme Palace Lord suddenly stood up, her face livid, glaring at the warship. She was just about to curse these lower realm bugs. However, before she could finish speaking, the warship's hatch opened. Our protagonist, holding the heaven-overturning seal, strode out with an imposing gait. "Oh, so you're all here. Perfectly on time, I see." Our protagonist cleared his throat and waved to the Supreme Palace Lord on the high platform. "Hey, I heard you're short on men and even tried to steal from this old one's clan. So today this old one has specially brought his entire family to bestow some warmth upon you all." Having said this, he turned his head to look behind him and shouted loudly, "Ocean, raise your son high. Let them witness what the correct way to unlock an innate ruthless Tao physique truly is." Li Ocean, upon hearing this, immediately lifted Li Tianyi above his head. Li Tianyi, his face utterly devoid of emotion, gazed at the bewildered celestial maiden surrounding them. His spiritual voice transmission clearly echoed throughout the space. "How utterly dull. The very atmosphere here smells of old hags." The Supreme Matriarch, upon hearing this brazen insult, nearly vomited blood in sheer indignation. At her command, the entire Shuangkong Immortal Island suddenly trembled violently. Innumerable ice-blue formation runes erupted from beneath the white jade ground, weaving together to form a colossal net that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. In an instant, the heavens and earth lost their color, and a chilling frost descended. This supreme emotionless grand formation was so potent that even the void itself was sealed without a single gap. Upon the high platform, the Supreme Palace Lord hovered in midair. As her finger pointed, the very air itself transformed into tens of thousands of ice arrows descending like a celestial river, crashing down towards you and the entire Li family. Yet, facing an attack capable of annihilating an entire imperial dynasty, you showed no haste in acting. Instead, you calmly turned to the descendants behind you, offering them a casual lesson. "Do you see now? This is what they call the methods of immortals. Though they appear lofty and transcendent in reality, they merely borrow the power of heaven and earth to suppress others. Gower, defend." Though Li Go's face was pale, his movements were as swift as lightning. He hastily summoned the mystic tortoise heaven-suppressing shield. Immediately after, a gigantic black light shield soared into the sky, instantly transforming into a colossal illusory image of a profound tortoise, enveloping both the warship and you within its formidable embrace. As a result, the tens of thousands of ice arrows slammed into the profound tortoise illusion, only emitting a dense series of clinking sounds, yet they were utterly incapable of shaking the light shield. Hidden within the formation's core, Li Go peered at the numbers on his compass. His initially terrified gaze slowly morphed into one of peculiar bewilderment. Is this truly the intensity of an upper realm attack? It doesn't seem much stronger than the heavenly tribulation of the lower realms, does it? By my calculations, this formation can still withstand attacks for 3 days and 3 nights. Seeing their attacks rendered ineffective, a female elder from the Supreme Immortal Palace roared in fury. The horsetail whisk in her hand transformed into 3,000 white silken threads, coiling like spiritual serpents, attempting to bypass the defensive barrier and strike you down. Little did she expect that Li Tiju would let out a cold snort, stepping forward to command the colossal black iron puppet at his feet, ordering Aolone to teach their opponents a lesson. Aolone, now in human form, strode forth with heroic vigor, Wielding a square sky halberd, he directly activated the lightning core within the warship. The chest of the black iron puppet split open, revealing dense rows of lightning spirit cannons. Immediately thereafter, countless spirit energy projectiles, imbued with abyssal sea-purple lightning, shrieked forth. They not only shattered the 3,000 white silken threads, but also exploded amidst the Supreme Immortal Palace's formation, leaving the female disciples responsible for maintaining the array blasted into ashen-faced disarray. The elders of the Supreme Immortal Palace wore extremely grim expressions. They had never anticipated such a formidable, never-before-seen magical artifact, and yet you remained unmoved. Your gaze pierced through the battlefield, fixing directly upon the Supreme Palace Lord on the high platform, and even upon the Supreme Ancestral Hall, faintly discernible amidst the clouds behind her. You sensed an even more ancient and powerful aura stirring within. Leoshan, go meet their saintess. Your sword Dao needs a whetstone. Leoshan, hearing this, stepped forth. His voice was firm, and his heaven-piercing sword intent challenged the saintess of the Supreme Immortal Palace. A cold flash of sword light shot forth from deep within the Immortal Palace, materializing into Lung Yu, the Supreme Saintess. She looked at Leoshan with disdain, stating outright, "One whose heart is bound by attachments cannot achieve true sword Dao." Little did she expect Leoshan to shake his head, his eyes filled with unwavering resolve. He declared simply, "A sword is meant to protect." Immediately thereafter, myriad swords unsheathed themselves without a breath of wind. This time, the sword chi was no longer merely sharp, it carried a majestic, righteous aura as heavy and unyielding as a mountain. The very next second, two entirely different sword intents clashed in mid-air. A shocking scene unfolded. The emotionless sword chi, seemingly unparalleled in its sharpness, upon encountering Li Aoshan's Hongchen protection sword intent, was like ice and snow meeting a raging inferno rapidly disintegrating. Lung Yu's expression changed dramatically. Her figure swiftly retreated as she felt her own emotionless Dao's foundation waver slightly. Upon the high platform, the Supreme Matriarch could finally no longer remain still. With both hands, she formed a mystical seal, summoning forth the Ancestral Master's Dharmic manifestation. In an instant, the 9 heavens trembled. A colossal Dharmic manifestation, 10,000 zhang tall and exuding the supreme pressure of a true immortal, coalesced in the skies above the Supreme Immortal Palace. A majestic voice boomed through the clouds and sky. The mere sound waves alone caused cracks to appear in the profound tortoise light shield. The faces of the Li family members changed drastically. Have they finally decided to reveal their trump card, they wondered. Yu, who had yet to make a move, finally stirred at this very moment. Facing the heaven-shaking pressure of that true immortal's dharmic manifestation, not a trace of fear marred your countenance, instead a cold smile bloomed on your lips. A dignified great emperor, entering secluded cultivation for 100,000 years, merely to pursue eternal life. Now, having just awakened, you were already being targeted by forces from the upper realm. But passively enduring attacks was never your style. Thus, you personally led your clan in an assault. At this moment, facing the boundless might of that true immortal Dharma idol, your face showed no fear. Instead, you laughed and unfurled the myriad immortal's bowing scroll, proclaiming loudly, "Cease your pretense up there. You are merely a projection. If you wish to contend with numbers," you then abruptly unfurled the scroll. A grand emperor's might instantly erupted. The next second, the scroll unfurled, covering the heavens and obscuring the earth. Countless figures within it seemingly came alive, the projected heroic spirits of mighty cultivators from myriad worlds. There was an ancient elder riding a green ox, purple chi permeating the east, a young man with a sword drunkenly singing wildly, a stone Buddha plucking flowers smiling serenely. Though each phantom possessed only 1/10,000th of their original strength, their sheer numbers were overwhelming, reaching 10,000 strong. The next second, at your command, 10,000 heroic spirits struck simultaneously. All manner of divine abilities and arcane arts immediately converged into a dazzling torrent, carrying with it a heaven-shattering, earth-annihilating aura. It fiercely collided with that solitary true immortal Dharma idol. Everyone from the Taishang Immortal Palace stared in stunned disbelief. Even the Palace Lord Taishang let out a cry of shock. But under the onslaught of the myriad immortal flood, that seemingly invincible true immortal Dharma idol resisted for less than 3 breaths before it was riddled with cracks. With a sharp crack, the Dharma idol shattered. The ultimate trump card that the Taishang Immortal Palace had always prided itself on became a complete joke under this unconventional human wave tactic. Immediately after, you strode through the air, advancing step by step towards the ashen-faced Palace Lord Taishang. You did not strike directly, but merely looked down at her with haughty disdain. "Now, can we speak properly?" In an instant, the smoke dispersed. The main hall of the Taishang Immortal Palace now stood with its great doors wide open, filled with a chilling, murderous aura. The once high and mighty Palace Lord Taishang, along with dozens of Taishang elders, sat on the ground, their faces pale and their auras weak. Atop the main hall, you sat on a cold jade throne, looking down indifferently at these female cultivators who were once unrivaled. Princess of Ruthlessness, even at this point, do you still have anything to say? Your voice was calm, yet it resonated like the tolling of great bells, causing the hall to hum. Palace Lord Taishang let out a bitter laugh and looked up. Though her eyes held unwillingness, despair was more prominent. She gritted her teeth and declared, "The victor is king, the vanquished is bandit, we shall abide by your will." But the Taishang Immortal Palace has a legacy of 10,000 years, cultivating the path of Taishang oblivion of emotion. You may destroy our sect, but you cannot destroy our Dao heart, much less expect us to submit to a swarm of lower realm insects. Hearing this, you showed no anger. Instead, you merely chuckled lightly. The true Taishang oblivion of emotion is not heartlessness, but rather possessing emotions without being bound by them. As for you all, suddenly you stood up, taking one step forward. A terrifying aura pressed down on the female cultivators, making it impossible for them to raise their heads. Your so-called oblivion of emotion is merely avoidance and fear, transforming yourselves into cold stones. You dare not even face the 7 emotions and 6 desires, nor have you ever experienced the myriad aspects of the mortal world. What talk then of transcendence? What talk then of the great Tao? These words struck like a heavy hammer, landing squarely on the Taishang Palace Lord's heart. Her body trembled. She wished to retort, but found herself utterly speechless. Today this emperor shall not slay you. You retracted your aura and returned to your throne. Not only will I not slay you, but I shall bestow upon you a stroke of good fortune. As you spoke, you waved your hand, pointing towards the infant Li Tianyi in Ling Qingshui's arms. This child possesses a heavenly heartless Tao physique, but he is still in swaddling clothes. He needs care and he needs guidance. From this day forward, the Taishang Immortal Palace shall be renamed the Mortal Dust Tao Palace. Your task is to relinquish your former identities and enter the mortal world to cultivate. And the first lesson in your cultivation is to care for this child, and for the future descendants of my Li clan. What? The Taishang Palace Lord's pupils contracted. She asked with a mix of shame and indignation, do you intend for exalted immortal maidens such as us to become nannies? Your gaze sharpened, your voice allowing no room for negotiation. This is the mortal dust tempering of the heart. If you succeed, you might gaze upon the true immortal realm. If you fail, you truly are nothing but a useless bunch of trash. Having spoken, a cold glint flashed in your eyes. You formed a hand seal, and with a soft hum, countless golden talismans flew from your fingertips, instantly burrowing into the glabella of every female cultivator present. This is the mortal dust heart-locking incantation. If any of you harbor ill intentions or seek to harm the child, your divine soul will instantly perish. But if you sincerely comprehend its essence, this incantation will be a supreme profound art that helps you break through your bottlenecks. Choose death or cultivation within the mortal world. The Taishang Palace Lord felt the golden talismans within her sea of consciousness, her heart locked in a fierce struggle. After a long moment, she let out a sigh, finally bowing her head in surrender. Since you had taken over the Taishang Immortal Palace, you naturally had to transform this place into a solid base in the upper realm. Thus, you turned to Li Tiezhu and commanded oversee this matter. Li Tiezhu's eyes blazed with fanaticism. He immediately summoned hundreds of construction puppets and began vigorously renovating the Immortal Palace. The isolated caves, originally used for secluded cultivation, were converted into spirit-gathering chambers overflowing with spiritual qi. They were also equipped with temperature-regulating arrays to ensure a comfortable living environment for infants. The cliffs, once bearing the marks of devastating sword intent, were smoothed away. They were replaced by enlightenment diagrams brought by the Li clan and vibrant, life-filled landscape paintings. Meanwhile, Li Ku was far from idle. Leading 3,000 formation masters, he personally oversaw the dismantling of the old sect-protecting Grand Formation. In its stead, he erected the formidable 9 heavens 10 earths black tortoise immovable as mountain Grand Formation. But even as the Taishang Immortal Palace underwent this strange yet harmonious transformation, the outside world was already seething with unrest. The news spread. The Taishang Immortal Palace had changed hands. The Li clan, hailing from the lower realm, had launched a counter-assault into the upper realm. This revelation erupted like a cataclysmic storm, sweeping across the entirety of Qingming Heaven in the upper realm. The two most dominant forces closest to the Taishang Immortal Palace, the Myriad Dragon Nest and the Heavenly Phoenix Pavilion, reacted with the fiercest fury. Deep within the Myriad Dragon Nest, in a colossal dragon palace, a middle-aged man, adorned with 2 prominent horns and exuding terrifying dragon might, wore a ghastly, incredulous expression. Those deranged women actually suffered defeat, and to a mere swarm of ants from the lower realm. This was none other than the reigning Dragon Lord of the Myriad Dragon Nest, a peerless true immortal powerhouse. Dragon Lord, an elder reported from below, according to the scout's intelligence, the Li clan's methods are exceedingly strange. Furthermore, the elder continued, it appears they are conducting some sort of mortal world trial, treating those female cultivators as mere playthings. Absurd, this is an utter humiliation to the immortal sex. The Dragon Lord slammed his hand on the table, rising abruptly. A flicker of greed ignited in his eyes. If they, mere beings from the lower realm, could ascend thus, they must undoubtedly possess profound treasures. Moreover, this venerable one has coveted the resources of the Taishang Immortal Palace for a great many years. Dispatch envoys at once. Contact the Phoenix Lord of the Heavenly Phoenix Pavilion and inform her that this succulent prize belongs to our 2 clans. Not long after, atop the stargazing platform of the Taishang Immortal Palace, our protagonist stood with hands clasped behind his back, a faint, knowing smile playing upon his lips. Just then Li Go, clutching a compass tightly, rushed forward, his voice urgent. He reported that 2 utterly terrifying energy fluctuations were rapidly approaching. It appears by all accounts that the grand armies of the Dragon and Phoenix clans are upon us. Our protagonist merely raised an eyebrow, not even bothering to turn. He simply asked with an air of casual indifference how many have arrived. Li Go swallowed hard, his gaze fixed on the trembling needle of his compass. His heart hammering in his chest, he stammered, over 1,000 warships, and at least 2 true immortal level powerhouses. 2? Far from showing any concern at this revelation, a glint of eager anticipation sparkled in our protagonist's eyes. I was just lamenting the lack of free high-tier labor within my abode, he mused. This time I shall demonstrate to the entire upper realm what it truly means to invite deities with ease, yet dismiss them with arduous difficulty. This venerable great emperor had once entered seclusion for 10 millennia, solely in pursuit of true immortality and eternal life. Now, having only recently emerged from his profound meditation, he found himself targeted by the mightiest forces of the upper realm. But to passively endure their aggression, that was never his style. Thus, he personally led his clan to meet the encroaching invasion. At this very moment, the usually serene nine heavens was violently rent asunder by two distinct yet equally terrifying torrents of spiritual chi. To the east, a golden tide of draconic blood surged as 10,000 dragons roared their defiance. Every single wave concealed monstrous, ferocious behemoths. To the west, an inferno blazed to the heavens as phoenixes cried out across the nine firmaments. Countless phantoms of divine phoenixes painted half the sky a vibrant, fiery crimson. The myriad dragon nest and the heavenly phoenix pavilion, two pinnacle demonic beast powers of the upper realm, had unleashed their entire might to punish the so-called demonic path. Immediately thereafter, the eastern mists ripped open. 10,000 skeletal true dragons, their forms crackling with ancient power, pulled a colossal chariot, thundering as it descended. Upon the chariot stood a middle-aged man, adorned with a flat heaven crown and the nine-dragon robe. He was Xianxia True Immortal, the formidable master of the myriad dragon nest. When his eyes opened, thunder seemed to roll. And in the west, a thousand Zhang, five-colored true phoenix transformed with a majestic shake, manifesting as a beautiful woman garbed in resplendent palace robes, grasping a Wutong staff. This was the pavilion master of the Heavenly Phoenix Pavilion, Feng Yu True Immortal. Witnessing the descent of these two true immortals, backed by thousands of warships brimming with murderous intent, the surrendered female cultivators of the Taishang Immortal Palace immediately turned ashen. They trembled uncontrollably, convinced that the heavens themselves were about to collapse. But precisely in this moment of collective despair and terror, a remarkably lazy voice suddenly echoed into the ears of every single person present. What is all this ruckus? Can a man not even enjoy a peaceful nap around here? Everyone raised their heads in utter bewilderment, only to see our protagonist. He stood atop the highest peak of the Dao Palace, calmly holding a steaming cup of enlightenment tea, as if merely admiring the scenery. With an air of detached amusement, he surveyed the vast dragon and phoenix army filling the sky. Our protagonist took a leisurely sip of his tea, then casually turned his head to glance at Li Go, who stood behind him. "Second brother, record this," he instructed. "The Dragon Clan's roar is mighty, perfectly suited for guarding our courtyard, and the Phoenix Clan's cry, so clear and resonant, it would be ideal for announcing guests." Li Go immediately pulled out a jade slip, his expression turning serious as he began to record. Yet a trace of anxiety flickered across his face. After all, the cultivation of those two leading beasts was extraordinarily high. Taming them would certainly not be easy. "It matters not," our protagonist stated calmly, setting down his teacup. He cleared his throat. "Two fellow Taoists having traveled so far, why insist on such hostility and bloodshed? Coincidentally, this old man's humble abode is in dire need of capable laborers. I wonder, could you perhaps endure a moment of discomfort and relinquish your current roles to serve as dedicated personal mounts for my Li clan?" The instant these words left his lips, heaven and earth were plunged into a profound, deathly silence. Xianxia True Immortal stood dumbfounded, and Feng Yu True Immortal was equally stunned. They had lived for tens of thousands of years, heard countless pleas for mercy, endured myriad curses, but never in their wildest dreams had they imagined someone would brazenly propose to capture them as chariot mounts. Xianxia True Immortal immediately erupted in a furious rage. His boundless dragon might exploded outwards, directly shattering the clouds within a 100-mile radius. He roared, "If I do not rip out your tendons, you audacious mortal, then I am no true dragon." Feng Yu True Immortal's killing intent likewise soared to the heavens. Both true immortals attacked simultaneously. A golden dragon claw, capable of eclipsing the sky, and blazing phoenix feather divine arrows, imbued with destructive law power, streaked directly towards our protagonist. Oh, such unyielding stubbornness, our protagonist sighed softly, with a dismissive wave of his hand behind him. "Come forth and act. Remember, they must be captured alive. Dead, they hold no value." No sooner had the words fallen than three figures, imbued with a wild, surging aura, soared from the depths of the Dao Palace into the heavens. Li Tiezu let out a mighty roar, commanding the reinforced primordial heaven-shattering golem. Like a plummeting meteor, it hurtled towards the dragon's claw. Beside him, Aoluan, the dragon maiden of the West Sea, revealed her draconic half, clutching a Fangshan Huaji. Her eyes blazed with a heaven-piercing battle intent. Aoxiao Zhenxian, recognizing Aoluan's bloodline, flashed a look of contempt, murmuring of her impure, mixed heritage. Yet Aoluan showed no fear. Her halberd swept wreathed in violet lightning and thunder, intent on demonstrating to him the flawless fusion of mechanism arts and the physical body. A deafening roar erupted, and a startling sight unfolded. The black, unassuming puppet, devoid of any spiritual energy fluctuations, had staunchly withstood a full assault from a Zhenxian. "What?" Aoxiao Zhenxian gasped in astonishment. Just then, Li Tieju poked his head from the puppet's chest, cackling darkly, and flung forth a colossal net. Woven from dragon silk and etched with paralyzing runes, it unfurled in the air. The golem in turn extended 8 arms, like iron pincers, clamping down tightly upon the dragon's immense body. In the very next instant, Aoxiao Zhenxian realized with horror that he was utterly immobilized. Immediately, Aoluan soared upwards, expertly flipping her halberd. She then brought the heavy shaft of the weapon down with brutal force upon the back of Xiao Zhenxian's neck. A single, decisive strike, and the mighty Zhenxian saw stars, his vision blurring. Meanwhile, on another front, Fengyu Zhenxian confronted Li Erqiu, who rode upon the White Tiger Empress. The Zhenxian let out a cold, derisive laugh as the five-colored divine flames behind her erupted into a scorching sea, intent on incinerating both rider and beast to ash. Little did she know, Li Erqiu merely pouted, retrieved a handful of alluring demon-baiting divine bones from within his robes, which exuded an intoxicating, strange fragrance, and casually tossed them aside. In the next moment, the phoenix descendants, once fierce and majestic, caught the alluring scent. Instantly, they began clucking ignobly, their eyes fixated on the scattered bones. Several, unable to resist, lunged forward to peck. Immediately thereafter, Bai Ling manifested her true white tiger form, tilting her head to the heavens and unleashing a prolonged, earth-shattering roar. The roar of the sovereign beast carried the punitive aura of primordial Gengjin. Fengyu Zhenxian felt a searing pain pierce her very soul, and the boundless sea of flames which had filled the sky was shattered and dispersed by 80 to 90%. Seizing this opportune moment, Li Erqiu flung forth 108 golden rings, employing his myriad ring beast control art divine ability. Each ring, with uncanny precision, ensnared one of the distracted phoenixes. At his command, the once noble phoenixes plummeted in unison like dumplings into a waiting chicken coop. Witnessing this outrageous spectacle, Fengyu Zhenxian's eyes nearly burst from sheer fury. She demanded, "You dare to capture phoenixes, divine beasts, and treat them as common poultry?" Li Erqiu, however, corrected her with utmost solemnity. "These," he declared, "are rare ornamental birds. Henceforth, they shall be responsible for laying eggs, performing dances, and will be afforded full provisions and luxurious accommodations." Witnessing their grand army embroiled in such a bitter struggle, Xiao and Fengyu finally comprehended they had truly struck an immovable object. Thus they resolved to first capture the true instigator. Xiao ignited his primordial dragon blood, forcefully tearing free from his binds. Fengyu let out a piercing phoenix cry. Combining their powers, the two instantly coalesced into a devastating beam of light, capable of annihilating heaven and earth. This single strike, born from the accumulated cultivation of two Zhengxians, possessed enough might to pierce even the deepest abysses of the netherworld. But our protagonist merely observed the roaring torrent of destruction, then slowly extended a single hand. Within his palm, an ancient complex formation diagram began to subtly rotate. This venerable emperor, who had secluded himself for 100,000 years in pursuit of immortality, had only just awakened. He had led his clan to the upper realm. Now facing a strike that encompassed the entire life's cultivation of two Zhengxians, our protagonist merely slowly extended a hand. And within that outstretched palm, the ancient formation diagram once more began to spin. As the devastating torrent of dragon and phoenix light collided with the formation diagram, it dissipated without a single sound, as if it had never existed. Immediately after, a swirling crimson mist swiftly enveloped both Zhengxians. Within that ethereal mist, Xiao Zhenxian perceived himself transformed into a lowly eel, writhing helplessly in the mud. Fengyu Zhenxian in turn saw herself as a common ground fowl, savagely pecking at another, drawing blood, all for the sake of a single worm. This was the Hongchen Yi, or Red Dust Intent, a potent force that directly targeted their divine souls and Tao hearts, assailing them with a violation of natural order. "No, I am a noble true dragon," cried "I am not, I am a phoenix. How could I possibly consume worms?" shrieked Fengyu. The two Zhengxians thrashed wildly in the air, their countenances utterly deranged. Then our protagonist calmly uttered two simple words, "Kneel down." A thunderous rumble echoed, and a terrifying soul-deep pressure immediately bore down upon them. Xiao and Fengyu Zhenxian, like broken kites, plummeted from the sky, landing heavily upon the plaza of the Hongshen Dao Palace, forced into an immediate unwilling kneel. In the next moment, the entire courtyard plunged into a deathly silence, so profound that even the faintest breath could be distinctly heard. Our protagonist slowly descended from the observation platform, gazing down upon these two overlords who had once held themselves so high above all others. His eyes held not the slightest ripple of emotion. "Gower," he commanded, "go retrieve those specially crafted beast-taming rings." Having said this, our protagonist casually pointed at the colossal dragon on the ground. "This grand serpent," he declared, "shall wear these and be sent to the spirit fields in the back mountain to toil in plowing. And this immense fowl—" He then tilted its chin, his gaze shifting to Ling Qingxue. "Daughter-in-law," he addressed, "did you not mention that Tianyi has been feeling somewhat frail of late? I find this phoenix's inherent foundation quite excellent. From this day forward, instruct it to lay one phoenix egg each day for Tianyi. He shall consume its essence in egg soup, perfectly nourishing his delicate constitution." Upon hearing this, Xiao Zhenxian and Fengyu Zhenxian felt a surge of rage so profound it attacked their very hearts. Their eyes bulged, and with a final desperate exertion of will, they succumbed to unconsciousness. Our protagonist nodded in satisfaction, then turned to face the dumbfounded ancestor of the Hongchen Dao Palace. He bellowed, "Observe closely. This is the fate that befalls any who dare provoke the Li clan. From this day forward, the upper realm shall no longer acknowledge the Wanlong Chao nor the Tianfeng Ji. There shall only be the first branch of the Li clan." In a blink, night descended. The vast, long-neglected spirit herb garden spanning 10,000 mu in the Dao Palace's back mountain became shrouded in a thin, ethereal mist. This was once the flourishing ground of the Taishang Wangqinghua, the supreme forgetfulness flower. Now, however, Li Go had led his people to completely uproot them. They prepared to switch to cultivating purple gold Ninggu Valley and Great Luo immortal radishes, crops promising higher yields and greater practicality. "Release me!" A furious dragon's roar reverberated across the mountains. Before them lay a Taigu true dragon, a creature 1,000 zhang long, its entire body shimmering with purple gold scales. Yet this majestic beast was now akin to a colossal worm, pinned helplessly to the earth. And upon its vast body rode Li Tiezu and the dragon princess of the West Sea, Aoluan. "Cease your struggles." Aoluan, gripping a chain shimmering with runic light, both bound Aoxiao Zhenxian's magnificent dragon horns and painstakingly pleaded with him. "This Windhow beast-taming lock was personally refined by my husband," she explained. "Infused with fragments of the very realm wall, it binds ever tighter with each attempt to resist. Should you continue to struggle, those beautiful dragon scales of yours will surely be severed." That scoundrel, this unfilial disgrace, a blight upon his ancestors. Aoxiao Zhenxian, his dragon whiskers bristling with fury, roared, "I am the lord of 10,000 dragons, a venerable true immortal. Do you truly intend for me to pull a plow?" "How can this be called pulling crow?" Li Tiezu gravely corrected. "Your esteemed dragon body harbors boundless power. To not utilize such strength for tilling the soil would be an egregious waste of resources. Furthermore, my Chaos Origin mountain opening plow has undergone 36 meticulous improvements, aligning perfectly with the flow of the Great Tao. It guarantees a pull so light and comfortable, you will barely notice it. I refuse to pull." Aoxiao Zhenxian thrashed wildly, desperately trying to impale himself on a nearby mountain, hoping to preserve his ancient honor through self-annihilation. Just then, Li Tiezu's calm voice echoed from the freshly tilled furrow, "Why the reluctance?" Li Tiezu stood, hands clasped behind his back, a broken branch from an enlightenment tea tree tapping gently against his palm. "Not wanting to do it is also perfectly acceptable," he mused. "Just now," he continued, "those two rascals of mine mentioned their spirit beasts have recently developed a craving for authentic dragon sashimi. Gower, fetch me that dragon slaying blade." "As you command." From a distance, Li Go gleefully directed several puppets. They advanced, carrying a colossal chopping blade that gleamed with chilling radiance and emanated an aura of sky-devouring killing intent. Aoxiao Zhenxian's entire body stiffened, his thrashing dragon form instantly halting. He did not fear death, but he dreaded such a meaningless end. To be reduced to sashimi? Better to pull the plow. I will plow," Aoxiao Zhenxian finally uttered, tears of humiliation welling in his ancient eyes. Gritting his teeth, he bowed his noble head, allowing Aoluan to fasten the colossal yoke around his neck. "Now isn't that more like it?" Li Tiezu nodded in satisfaction, casually issuing his commands. "Begin. Remember, the furrows must be straight, the soil loose and aerated. Fail to meet these standards, and there will be no next meal for you." At Li Tiezu's command, Aoxiao Zhenxian helplessly exerted his immense strength, trotting forward while silently cursing the 18 generations of the Li family's ancestors. Yet as he plowed, the situation seemed to subtly shift, taking on a curious new dimension. As a sign of the Dragon Clan, Aoxiao Zhenxian inherently possessed an almost obsessive pursuit of perfect lines and pristine order. When he glanced back, he observed the furrow behind him. Though deep, it was undeniably crooked. A sudden, inexplicable surge of displeasure welled within his ancient heart. "This line is utterly hideous," he fumed internally. "Not only is it 3 inches off, but its depth is inconsistent. Unacceptable. I am the lord of 10,000 dragons. Whatever endeavor I undertake, it must be executed to absolute perfection. Even in plowing, I must forge the straightest, most flawless furrow." And so Aoxiao Zhenxian actively adjusted his colossal form. This time, he poured his entire being into the task, his mighty dragon claws raking the earth, his power controlled with exquisite precision. A furrow appeared, straight as if drawn by a divine ruler, its depth perfectly consistent across the landscape. Aoxiao Zhenxian turned his head, surveying his handiwork. Instantly, his spirit felt refreshed, and a long-forgotten sense of profound accomplishment swelled within his chest. "Perfect. Now this is the standard befitting my status. I shall create another furrow, and it must be perfectly parallel to this one." Who could have ever imagined that Aoxiao Zhenxian, who moments ago required threats and coercion, would suddenly become utterly engrossed in the simple joy of tilling the fields? Meanwhile, far removed from the fields, within the Grand Council Hall of the Hongshen Dao Palace, the very air was thick with an oppressive solemnity. Li Tiezu sat at the head of the assembly, his countenance so grim that it seemed moisture could be wrung from his very expression. "Esteemed elders, our Li family has encountered an unprecedented crisis." Upon hearing these words, the expressions of all assembled immediately shifted. Leah Ocean, his hand instinctively gripping the hilt of his sword, his voice laced with killing intent, demanded, "Old ancestor, audacious sightless power dares to provoke our venerable clan. Your grandson shall annihilate them." Ligo, ever the cautious one, anxiously produced a stack of protective talismans. Could it be that the defensive formations of our Dao Palace possess a flaw? I knew it. That accursed breach in the south corner still requires 3 additional layers of seals. Leargo, on the other hand, immediately manifested his fearsome white tiger Dharma idol. "Are we to seize new territories? Tell me who needs biting." "Old ancestor, merely point the way. Silence, all of you." Gazing upon this assembly of hot-headed fools who knew only of endless conflict and slaughter, Li Tiezu finally lost his composure, slamming his palm onto the grand table with thunderous force, and his subsequent words would astound everyone present beyond measure. "Sh.